Hi, welcome to the United Panther Movement Book Club. We are reading Seize the Time by Bobby Seale, and we are kicking things off today at the section called Breaking Down Our Doors. Comrade Gabby, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Sister Zen. I'll begin reading breaking down our doors. Early in the morning, a number of brothers and I had talked in my house about the fact that we raised $10,000 for Huey's defense fund and about organizing bigger rallies to raise thousands of dollars we needed to keep our legal machinery together to keep Huey out of jail. I left the house at about 12:30 p.m. and I know I left a back window open. That night, the cops busted into my house and found a sawed-off shotgun. In court, it came out that my fingertips weren't on it and my wife's fingertips weren't on it. The shotgun was planted. They charged me with having an illegal weapon and to poison the atmosphere. They originally charged me with conspiracy to commit murder. Some cop said he heard someone in my house saying, quote, "We want rap," unquote. He said that later that night he heard the clacking of guns in my house. I don't know anything about it because I was asleep. I was very tired from the preceding week of running around and going to different speaking engagements with Stokely. When I got home that evening, I went to bed. My wife woke up around 2 a.m. and told me the cops were outside. The cops tried to pull a slick operation, calling me Mr. Seale and trying to sound polite. We would like to speak to you about disturbance in the area. Well, I don't know anything about disturbance, I said. I don't want you in my house. If you want to find out about disturbance in here, go see the landlord who's upstairs. No, we want to talk to you in your apartment, they said. There was a disturbance around here. There was no disturbance in my house, and I don't want you in my house. If you want to see somebody about disturbance, then go see the landlord. I had been talking to them through my apartment window. I was about to open the door all the way up, step out, and show them where the landlord was. But no sooner did I get the door 2 or 3 inches open when they kicked me up against the wall, put a shotgun to my belly, and started pointing a gun at my wife. I got mad and started hollering at the top of my voice, "Don't shoot my wife." They handcuffed me, sat me on my bed, went all through my house. I didn't see any shotgun that night I was arrested, but I heard them say, "We got it." They expected to find it. We were made to sit on the couch handcuffed while two cops stood over us with guns trained on us. Sitting there, I couldn't see who he was talking to. The cop said, quote, "Look what we found." The cop near me answered, "Yeah, we expected to find that." Then they took me out. The lady next door, who was later a witness, came to us after the bust and said a man had rented a room in her building 2 weeks prior to the bust. He was a white guy, a racist, this woman said, and all he did was watch our house. She had never paid too much attention, but had seen him out there fooling around watching us. After the bust, she realized what was happening because she knew this guy had called the cops. The next day, she asked him why he did it. He was packing his bags and leaving at the time, and he told her it wasn't any of her damn business, and then he split. That was the last we saw of him. The cops say he's the one who called them. I was charged with possession of illegal weapons. I got an Army 45, and I know there was a serial number on that weapon, and it was not illegal. In court, they delivered a gun with the serial number ground off, which is against the law. At the station, I thought about the arrest, and I asked the cops what they were doing searching my house without a search warrant. We didn't need a search warrant, they said. We've been listening to you all day. If they were listening to me, the main thing they had was we had made over $10,000 for Huey's defense fund. In jail, I thought that over again. But they had our bail high, $6,000 on me. They're planning to drain our funds, I said to myself. That must be what they're attempting. It was only a week after the rally for the defense of Brother Huey, and that is the only reason I could see for arresting me and my wife on such trumped up charges. The charges against me were dropped by Judge Lionel Wilson. He quashed them on the basis that the policeman was lying, that he was contradictory in his statements, and because they had no reasonable cause to bust into my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. They said they had reasonable cause, but the judge ruled that if everything was peaceful and quiet as they testified it was, they had no reasonable cause to break into my house. It was illegal search and seizure. A month before my arrest, the San Francisco tactical squad was has busted into Eldridge Cleaver's house, trying to intimidate and harass him. They were trying to find a gun. When Eldridge first came into the party, Huey let it be understood that Eldridge couldn't have weapons because he was an ex-felon. The party had set that policy because we understood that we just couldn't get into a lot of illegal activity. Huey always said our activity should be legal. Yup, above ground activity. Eldridge followed orders and did himself have guns. One night after the search, Kathleen said, "What if we actually got attacked and didn't have anything to defend ourselves with?" Eldridge said that she would just have to get herself a gun because the Minister of Defense had told him he couldn't have one because he was an ex-felon. So Kathleen went down to the store and purchased some guns. Eldridge told his parole officer that his wife was definitely buying some guns, and as they lived in the same house, there was nothing he could do. Eldridge stayed completely legal about this and stayed within the policy that Huey set.
I think it's important to take a pause for the cause here at the end of this section. See the little 3 stars there. First of all, that right there is why you never even crack the fucking front door.
Nope, never.
Do it. Don't fucking do it. Talk to them through the window or through the door, and if they ain't got a warrant, fuck them. You do not open the fucking door, because the second they take that as consent to enter your fucking home, even though it's not. And this shit still happens to this day. There was a video that I'd seen, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year ago, of a woman this happened to, that the pigs were looking for somebody who didn't even fucking live in her house. And because she cracked the door to talk to them and ask them, like, what the fuck are you even talking about? I don't even know who this person is. The cops tried doing exactly that, of leaning into the door, shoved their feet into the door where she couldn't close it back up, and sat there for a good hour or more, harassing the fuck out of her, demanding that she stop leaning against the other side of her door and let them the fuck in the house. And she was like, no, ain't fucking happening. But they will take advantage of any fucking opportunity like that to try to force their way into your home illegally.
I have a story that relates very much to this subject matter.
Fire away, Carmen.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into Jack in the Box to get a nice coffee for my sister. But okay, so years ago, when my grandpa was still alive, my sisters were acting up, blah blah blah, and he was the kind to give a spanking, but not go out crazy with it, because they had gotten us through from state care. So it was always in the back of their minds, like, we can't overdo it, because if anything happens, we will lose custody again, kind of deal. Anyways, so my sisters were acting up at Costco, and somebody called the cops. They apparently must have given a clean description of the vehicle and a license plate, because 2 rookies showed up on our doorstep claiming they were investigating an abuse, when I know for a fact that didn't happen. And it was one of my sisters fucking having a goddamn tantrum because she was the baby and spoiled and whatever. Anyways, screen door was my grandpa opened the door, and then eventually he wound up cracking the screen, and they yanked it open, pulled him out of the door, and he's in his 60s, I'd say 63 at the time, and two young rookies pounce on him, and he literally is strong enough to throw them off. They had to call in backup, and it took a full 5 other officers to subdue my grandpa.
Oh, Grandpa.
Go grandpa.
Fucking grandpa. Fuck those fascist ass pigs. Like,
French Canadian, by the
like
way.
this right here. Oh hell yeah! Like this shit right here. This shit right here. I've said it before, and I will say it again. What's considered legal or illegal all determines on what benefits the ruling class, and they will break their own fucking laws if it means upholding their own interests. They don't care. They do not
Reclaiming
give
my
a single
time?
flying fuck. They will.
Yeah.
Reclaiming my time, real quick. Not quite done. We wound up suing the city
Right. Sorry.
and the police department and won.
Good.
Right on.
For sure one because
Good.
there was nothing to find.
Right. And they assaulted an old man, and they had to change policies so that one senior officer and one rookie must ride together and investigate calls together. Never 2 rookies.
Yeah. I mean,
Because they were way wrong. They thought they were right, and they cost the city $1 million.
Good.
Most of which went to legal fees, but it was about the fucking fact of the matter.
Yeah.
I now surrender my time.
Thank you, comrade. And yeah, it's important to note that shit because like most of the time the pigs don't even know the laws themselves. And they're literally counting on you being ignorant to what your rights are so that they can abuse them.
Correct.
So
anytime.
So go ahead, Comrade Shanti. I see you got your hand up.
Like, what is law to them? Law is literally foreign, to the bourgeoisie. They don't care. They make up, shit in the name of so-called law so that they can break it at any time to, suppress the proletariat, for any reason whatsoever, especially what happened to Bobby and, in dope capitalism plus dope equals genocide. Michael said a while. DeBoer of the Panther 21 talks about how the revolutionaries, some of the revolutionaries, especially in New York, where it was the hotbed for the heroin epidemic at the time. The police were literally barging in, their apartments and planting drugs to make it seem like they were finding evidence. But once again, the police put it there, and the police are the ones that make it possible. Why? Because they sell it themselves too. They sell the drugs too.
Yep.
They said, like, even one of them said that, I think Panama talked about it in the elders Q&A with the Young Lord's book on how, he saw policemen sell literal drugs to kids out of the damn car. So, like, what is law to them? It doesn't exist. Because if law actually existed, then why in the hell are we being suppressed, and having evidence planted on us? Because they don't even teach us these things anyway. They want us to be ignorant and subservient to where we would give them supposedly clause for them to come in and suppress us and arrest us over nothing, because that's literally how they work. There's no such thing as law. There is no such thing as law with them. They make up whatever concessions in the name of so-called law in order to suppress, the masses in, like selling drugs out of the car to kids, planting the drugs, planting guns, because they have nothing to lose. Law does not exist in this kind of world in bourgeois society. It does not exist. They don't care about it. They don't care about it because it doesn't.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, it doesn't exist to them. It's foreign because that's the point.
They treat it as laws for thee and not for me, which is why they have that shit of
Like
the qualified immunity. That's the term. It took a minute to wrap my brain. Hiding behind their badge. Like, this doesn't fucking apply to me. Like, they have some fucking 007 license to kill and all that other shit and can't be held accountable for it because they think it don't apply to them. And they also think that the law only applies if they wish it, which is why they're doing shit right now of like going and arresting protesters for simply exercising their First Amendment rights, even though like there's no crime committed.
That's
but
the point.
They'll pull shit. Yeah, they'll pull shit like falling back on, oh, do you have a permit for this protest? Suck my dick. The fucking First Amendment on the Bill of Rights is my permit.
Right. Like, and see, that's the thing. That's the thing. They're very, very sophisticated, with that. And people think that they're stupid. No, they're not being stupid at all. They're smart. They know how to trick us that way. They know how to get us, on their side. They know how to kind of suppress us to where they would make their move. This is what they do. They're very, very sophisticated this way. They're very, very sophisticated. And it's very important that they know this, like, wholeheartedly, because once again, the tactics that they've used in Bobby's time is way different now. It's more sophisticated than ever. And, it's very easy to kind of miss the red flags, lines because they hide in plain sight. They don't have to, be all blunt in your face about it anymore. It's kind of like more sophisticated and kind of like indirect, but it's still like suppressing us in big ways. So, that's what we have to really keep in mind because they have nothing to lose.
Right. And a related side note, there is a lot of what they get in their training is manipulation tactics. And that goes hand in hand with them literally using psych profiling in their hiring practices to look for people who are sociopathic and have a tendency for violence. And they especially love narcissistic sociopaths because they're the best manipulators who right to those manipulation tactics that they're taught in their training. And then we got shit libs out here pretending like, oh, well, we can just fix the police from the inside up. Let's give them more funding for more training. Motherfucker, the training they get is part of the problem.
It's literally a part of it. And the narcissist part, that's how sophisticated they are. Because they will literally find whoever is good at manipulating, at full-blown lying, to make it even stronger. This is what they do, you guys.
Yep.
They think ahead. And that's the thing. They think ahead of us, of the masses. They think ahead. And what we should be doing, they adapt their strategy, to suppress, the masses, to keep the bourgeois system up, to keep the ruling class up, to keep capitalist imperialism going. This is what they do. They find whoever is the best manipulators and liars by nature to get stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, okay, people are starting finally to wake up in the last few years to the fact that this is a fucking police state. It has always been a police state, always been a carceral state. And it seeks any fucking way it can to get you caught up under some fucking charges, because not only are they going to profiteer off of being able to fucking charge you fines along with your jail time and all of that shit, but once they've got you in there, you're free slave labor. And typically anymore to a fucking privately owned prison institution. Comrade Joe, I see you got your hand up there. What's up, comrade?
Yes, I'm enjoying the conversation and stuff, but I didn't want to like be a boo-hoo or anything. But do you think we can continue reading? Because I got 20 minutes until our La Mesa Nacional Brown Beret study group, revolutionary study group starts. So I don't know, but I mean,
Absolutely.
I always enjoy everybody's conversation, and I will not be able to read tonight because I cannot find my reading glasses. But I would like to at least get a couple more knowledge out of this reading for tonight, if that's possible and everybody agrees with that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you. Cause yeah, we do need to be mindful of how much time we're using here. And, you know, I, the amount of conversation we've had already about what's relating to this section is definitely sufficient. And thank you for letting me know you don't have your glasses, because I was going to ask you if you wanted to read next, since you got to leave soon.
Yeah, I figured that. That's why I wanted to shoot that out there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Okay, who would like to take a turn reading next?
I can fill in if needed.
Awesome. Go for it, Stone.
Let me just start from the top.
Yep.
Huey made a lot of policies like that one, so we would have a legal organization. At the very beginning of the party, Huey had done a lot of research in law books, and he had also been in law school for a year. Huey would go to the law library downtown, and he also studied the case histories that were in the North Oakland OEO Poverty Center, where we were able to obtain a lot of information. It was a multi-purpose poverty center, and one service was legal aid. They had 2 full walls of law books, so we could check into all possible ways the cops might charge us with breaking. We were very aware of the laws related to illegal possession of weapons, so that we wouldn't get caught in the snares and traps of the system. At the time of my arrest, thousands of members were coming into the party. Seattle started a chapter, and the Los Angeles Southern California branch was already operating. My arrest was not only an effort to drain the party's resources, but also an attack on the leadership of the party. Chief of Staff David Hilliard, Deputy Minister of Defense Alprentice Bunchy Carter, who has since been murdered, Bunchy Carter's brother, who's now dead also, and a girl who since dropped away from the party were also busted the same night as I was. I first realized that other people had been busted when I came into the jail. I saw this girl in an interrogation cell. I was completely confused because I couldn't understand what she was doing there. She had been working with the party almost a year. Because I had been asleep at my house, I didn't realize what was going on. I heard one of the officers say, "We've got the other 4 and we're booking them." When I was in the booking cell, they brought Bunchy out. They were going to book him too. He said 20 cops surrounded them with shotguns pointed at the car and busted them for nothing. I finished getting booked and made my phone call. When Bunchy was booked, we were put in a cell together. I really began to worry about Bunchy because he had been in prison with Eldridge, and he was on parole. One of the things Huey and I dreaded was brothers in the party who were on parole getting busted, because the California fascist operation just sends them back to prison for practically no reason at all. I told Bunchy had just made a phone call and that I would probably be out soon. "You'll be the first one I come back and get out," I said, "because you're on parole." My brother John Seale came to bail me out. My wife was in jail too, but I knew we could always get her out. The thing was to get Bunchy Carter out. 3 hours later, we bailed him and his brother out. They told me everything that had happened. There had been a pistol in the glove compartment of the car, and there was another pistol in the car, but it wasn't concealed. They told me how the bust had happened and what they were charged with. We got our lawyer and about $100. I told Bunchy to go back to LA and continue organizing and to lay low. He said he would try to deal with his parole officer down there. In March, the cops busted into Eldridge's house for the second time. For that reason, Huey P. Newton wrote Executive Mandate Number 3, concerning Gestapo cops busting down our doors. It stated that we had a right to defend our threshold, and that everyone must defend his threshold. If the police come up to our door acting in an unorderly manner, it is said we could only consider them as a danger to our lives. Huey was aware that members of the John Birch Society, the KKK, and many other sick patriotic racists joined the police force and also worked with racist vigilante groups. Information had also been sent to him that a number of these people disguised themselves. Huey set forth mandate number 3 for all party members that said when someone came to our door acting in a manner other than as a police officer should, kicking in our door and attacking, we were to defend ourselves. By this time, we had chapters in Seattle, Southern California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and our national headquarters in Oakland. Every time they attacked us, the party grew. At that time, early in 1968, they were mainly interested in the leaders like Huey, Eldridge, David Hilliard. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Excuse me. I'm not as educated as I should be for a Panther. Bunchy Carter and myself. When arresting us failed to stop the growth of the party, the power structure escalated its attack and began shooting us down in the streets, in our offices, and in our homes. Shootout. Do you want me to keep going?
If you want to, sure. That was a short section.
Absolutely. Shootout. The pigs kill Bobby Hutton. One day in the middle of March 1968, Eldridge called me up and said, "Hey man, come over here. I've got something to hip you to about the pigs plotting to attack us." I went over to Ramparts and they took me into a room. There was a white girl standing there. Eldridge said, "Tell Bobby what you told me." She ran down to me that she had been sitting in a bar and heard 2 cops talking about the Black Panther Party. One was saying that on April 2nd, they would have something for us. They said they were going to get rid of all the Panthers. I asked her if that was what she heard. She ran down some other things about the Panther Party. She said they went over April 2nd again and talked about doing the Panther Party in. I looked at Eldridge and we walked out of the office. "What do you think, man?" he asked me. "Man, they're going to try and attack us," I said. I asked him if this chick was reliable. Eldridge thought she was pretty reliable, so we knew we'd have to check it out. 3 days later, an ex-policeman, a black cat, came over to the office and told me that he had heard some cops saying that sometime in April they were going to get rid of us. He had heard rumors going around and he thought he'd come down and tell us. I talked to Eldridge and told everybody they were going to have to get some guns, keep the guns in our houses, and keep them clean and ready because there's no telling what they might do. We had some guns before, but I told everybody to be prepared and to make sure that if somebody didn't have a gun, to see that they got one because there was no telling what was going to happen. We might get attacked at any time. At the birthday rally for Huey, we had announced that we were running him for Congress from the 7th Congressional District. The primaries to get Huey's name and my name on the ballot as Black Panther Party candidates running on the Peace and Freedom Party tickets were coming up in June. I was running for the state assembly for the 7th Assembly District. We had scheduled a rally in the Black community at Defremery Park for April 7th, a Sunday. It was to be a barbecue picnic rally for Huey P. Newton Defense Fund and the campaign funds to run Huey and myself. We were already getting a lot of good response from the people. Many people had already said that they were going to be there for the $1 a plate barbecue. We had sound trucks and all sorts of publicity out in the community. We even got a radio station to announce it. We'd been getting donations from stores of barbecue ribs, things we needed to make potato salad, barbecue meat, and stuff like that. We got chickens and boxes of wieners and lots of other food that people had donated to us for this barbecue picnic. At the same time, this rumor had gotten around inside the party that the pigs were going to attack us. Threatening notes had come to me from members of the sheriff's department. I assumed it was the Alameda County sheriffs. The notes just said, "I'm the sheriff, and when you come into court, you're going to get it." This kind of stuff had been going on for a while. I had to appear in court on April 1st, and we were trying to speculate on which one of the deputy sheriffs had written the notes. We were used to getting threatening notes, but the cats would never say who they were. If you get a threatening note from the American Nazi Party, you don't pay any attention to it. But when you get a threatening notes from fools who say they're in the sheriff's department, you begin to speculate a little bit because you know the cops want to deal with you. So I holed up in an apartment while we were doing some quick investigation on whether one of the deputies who acts as bailiff in the Alameda County Courthouse in downtown Oakland had actually written notes. We wanted to check out who was wearing guns and try to case the courthouse and look around all the buildings before I showed up in court to see if anybody was going to shoot me on the courthouse steps. It was all related to the rumors that they would try to get us April 2nd. I didn't show up in court, and the judge issued a warrant for me. We were going to try to expose this possible plot, and we figured the judge would eventually have to see why I didn't appear. But it didn't work out that way. Thursday evening, I was at the house where I was staying. I did some reading, got a phone call from Eldridge, and went to sleep. Then I woke up and decided to turn on the TV to catch the news. Someone said Martin Luther King was shot today, but I was in the back room of this apartment, and it didn't really dawn on me that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Because here I was hiding out in this room until we finished our investigation. Well, I came back into the room and some other kind of news was on, but all of a sudden it was announced again, Martin Luther King has been assassinated. I said, what? And turned up the TV. Martin Luther King assassinated. It really got off of me. I went to the window and saw a lot of cops. The cops weren't supposed to know where I was, but I saw cop cars coming down the street, 4 cops in a car. I didn't know what was happening. Then I saw 2 more cop cars coming down and going back up the street, 4 in a car. And I went back in the room and thought, God dog it, or God dog it, maybe they're trying to surround this place. So I went around and looked in the back. I was in the upstairs window. I was able to see an empty lot to the side with a lot of trees around the driveway of the house, and I could see a stairway going down. If I crawled across the bathtub and out of the window, I could reach the platform. I went back and shaved and then called my brother up and told him to bring his clippers over. When he got there, I said, cut my hair. Why? Just cut my hair. I checked out the closet of this apartment where I was staying. It belonged to a friend of mine. There were some clothes in there other than the ones I had been wearing. My brother left, and later that evening, I got a call from Eldridge, who told me everything was all right. But the next day, it was bad, man. I began to think the monkeys had surrounded the place. I saw police cars every 5 or 10 minutes, and it looked to me like they were circling the block. Then I saw 2 cars drive up, and this is the thing that got me off. When I was looking out the front window, one car drove up 4 doors to the right, and when the guy got out of the car, he unbuttoned his suit coat. He walked across the street and across from where I was staying. That's a cop, I said to myself. I know that's a cop. Damn it, these bastards are trying to surround me up here. So I changed clothes right quick, put on some shades, crawled out the back window, and came down among the trees. Then I cut across the lot to the right and onto the street and just walked down the streets of Berkeley. I saw cops everywhere. I hadn't heard any more news, and I didn't know about the riots that were taking place. I speculated that there was going to be some trouble, though. I ran into a cat I knew who didn't recognize me because I'd completely shaved and cut my natural way down. I walked up to him and said, hey, man, what's happening? He just looked at me. I said, this is Bobby Seale. It had been in all the press that I hadn't shown up in court, so he looked at me and said, man, what's going on? Look, man, I said, I want you to drive me somewhere, at least out of this vicinity, because I think the pigs are surrounding the place I just left. I snuck out the back way, and if they bust in there now, they might come looking for me, and I need somebody to drive me away from here. So I got into his Volkswagen, and we drove down to San Pablo Avenue and Dwight Way. That corner was flooded with cops, man. It was flooded with cops, 25 or 30. There was a police telephone on the corner that a cop was talking into. They seemed to be watching cars, but I just looked at them. I had my shades on and acted normal, and the cops didn't recognize me. We drove down and got onto the freeway, went across the Bay Bridge, and drove out onto the peninsula. We drove into the hills for an hour, and I talked to the brother a long time about the party and Martin Luther King and what was going on. I began to hear more about the riots and everything that was happening. I finally told him to take me to 10 Palo Alto, where I knew somebody. When we got down to the sister's house there, I told him to take a message back to Eldridge Cleaver and David Millard. I gave him the phone number of the place where I was and told Eldridge to call me about the investigation of the possible plot. Eldridge called me late that night and told me that Judge States had pulled the warrant off and just didn't want me to start anything, as he put it. Early the next morning, April 6th, the brothers and sisters were cooking the food and preparing salads and stuff for the rally and barbecue at Defremery Park. There were sisters down at Father Neil's church and over at David Hilliard's house cooking potato salad, and also in the back of the office barbecuing ribs. We had a real operation going with sound trucks throughout the community, 4 or 5 of them. We had leaflets everywhere and a big bus, the Peace and Freedom Party's big sound truck, telling people to be at Defremery Park for a $1 a plate barbecue to raise money for the Huey P. Newton Defense Fund and for campaign funds for Huey and myself. we had a beautiful thing going, and we knew it was going to get thousands of black people out there. Since the judge had withdrawn the warrant on me, I came down to the office. Sorry, just a second. A lot of cops. I'm going to have to pause reading for a second. My phone's tripping out. Somebody wants to take over.
That's cool. I got you, comrade. A lot of the cops were floating around the office. There were cops everywhere, many more cops than usual. That whole day, the brothers were saying that if they attacked us, we would defend ourselves. One of the captains said he was going to transfer some weapons over to San Francisco. I told him to make sure that they weren't loaded, to keep them all in the trunk, and to keep everything legal. But I said, if it looks like you're going to get attacked or something like that, you might have to use the weapons because you've got a right to defend yourself. That afternoon, I met Eldridge at the Peace and Freedom Party office, and he said he was going to David's house that evening. I told Eldridge to take me down to the church because I wanted to talk with Father Neale about going to Martin Luther King's funeral. Eldridge had the white car that the Peace and Freedom Party had picked up cheap and given to us. That was in the late afternoon. I asked Eldridge where he was going, and he said he was going over to David's house. I told him I was going over to Father Neale's house, and I left with Father Neale in the car. After I was introduced to Father Neale's family, we sat down and ate. We were talking about the party and the party's philosophy. Father Neale was in a clergyman's organization that was set up so that whenever there was a disturbance in the community, this little group, a minister, a lawyer, and a doctor, would be taken to the trouble. Each group had a section of the city that it was assigned to. The organization had been set up for quite a while. Father Neale got a phone call, and all of a sudden he jumped up and said that we had to go, that they were shooting at somebody. His wife asked where he was going, and he said there's a shootout going on somewhere. The police attacked somebody and shot 2 or 3 people. Then I began to think about this April 2nd thing and those threatening notes from the so-called sheriff. I naturally thought about the party. We jumped in the car and drove all the way up to Berkeley where the switchboard office was. They said the shootout was between Panthers and police on 28th Street in Oakland. At that point, I was wondering who the supposed party members were. I knew a lot of people just didn't have any guns. As I got as much information as I could and then told Father Neale I wanted to go down there. The other ministers started saying that they didn't think we should. Then information came over the radio that the shootout was over and that they had all been arrested. The radio report said that Eldridge Cleaver had been arrested and that Bobby Hutton was shot. At that point, they didn't say he was dead. It also said that David Hilliard had been arrested and 2 or 3 other Panthers had been shot. It was late at night by the time we got the final report. David and Eldridge were arrested and little Bobby was supposedly shot. I felt the best thing to do was sit down and start trying to figure out some way to get them out of jail. I gave Kathleen Cleaver and a number of other Panthers a phone call and told them to stay in their houses, and if they got attacked, they ought to defend themselves. I went to my father-in-law's house. I began to think about everything I could, about what had happened, and how to go about getting the brothers some political defense. Father Neale called me up about 2 hours later, about 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning, and told me that Bobby Hutton had been killed. He told me that Eldridge Cleaver and Bobby Hutton had somehow been forced into a house. As they were coming out of the house, Bobby had his hands up, but they shot him in the head. Eldridge and I had been spotted twice by cops in the white car that day. We saw them looking at us and carrying on. I really felt they shot Bobby Hutton thinking they were shooting me. I was mad. I knew that Huey had said that we didn't believe in spontaneous riots, but I was so mad at that point that I felt I was going to tell all those people at the rally the next day to turn Oakland upside down. I was going to tell every Black person who came to the rally to tear up the town. I was going to tell them to hit the big man, the big time businesses. That's what I was going to tell them. I kept thinking about the fact that Huey had said no spontaneous riots, but I felt differently with Bobby Hutton dead and feeling that they thought they were killing me and instead they murdered little Bobby Hutton. Maybe I shouldn't have felt that way, but that's what I was thinking. The next morning, I went over to Gary's office so that he could take me up to the police station where we had called a press conference. Before we went up there, Gary went to visit Huey at the county jail in Oakland, and Huey sent a tape back and told me to remember to tell the people not to spontaneously riot, but to tell them to organize themselves, that the cops occupy our community like a foreign troop, and that we have a right by the Constitution of the United States to have guns and weapons in our homes. He urged me to tell them not to spontaneously riot because that's not the correct method, and because all it would do would get 50 or 100 Black people killed, maybe 200 wounded, and thousands arrested, as in riots in the past. He said we had to think of the safety of our people, even when brothers were murdered like Bobby Hutton was murdered. He said I knew that and shouldn't act on emotions, but should act on the correct methods of the struggle. Huey told me to tell the people to arm themselves and put arms in their homes, and to say that if they see racist cops brutalizing and murdering our people, that we have but one alternative: to go forth as an organized force in our community to defend ourselves against unjust, fascist, brutal attacks. I went over to June Hilliard's house. June is David Hilliard's brother, 2 blocks from DeFremery Park, where the rally was being held. A large crowd was moving towards the park. Gary came to June's house and took me up to Oakland Police Headquarters, where he had arranged for the press conference. I wasn't too happy about having it there, but I thought, well, if I'm with Gary and they arrest me, they'll just have to do it right. So we held the press conference, and I told the press what Huey had said. I know Huey was right, and I made it a point not to function off of emotions, because emotions won't guide a correct revolutionary struggle. Then I went back to the park and spoke to the people and told them exactly that. I told them that we were not going to spontaneously riot, but riot because we were with the power structure. We're against the racist power structure of the pigs and the murderers. I told them that if we rioted, the only thing that was going to happen was that maybe 50 would get killed, 200 would get shot up and wounded, and 3,000 or 4,000 arrested. And that's too many warriors gone. I told them that in those past riots and rebellions, people were exposing their disgust with the social evils that exist in society, but that now we had to organize ourselves and learn to defend ourselves with guns when we were unjustly attacked. I told them that we should go to our homes and make sure that each home had a shotgun. That's a typo, 357 Magnum pistol and a 38 pistol. Be safe with weapons, I said. The Black Panther Party isn't going to get hundreds of our people shot up, killed, and wounded. Even though they murdered Bobby Hutton and we don't like it, Bobby Hutton was a freedom fighter. And I ran it all down to them about Bobby Hutton. And you know what? Those people really applauded at what I had told them. It showed me that the people had learned from the past riots, that they had really learned that when they go out on a big riot form, the only thing that happens is that they're surrounded by Gestapo policemen, and that they're herded around and shot up like cattle. People related to the idea of being spread out in the community. I told them that if the pigs come down in our community in vicious force, then we should move around in small groups of 3s and 4s in defense of ourselves. I explained to them that if the pigs bring tanks down to our community, the young brothers are going to have to use guerrilla tactics and learn how to take those tanks, because those tanks are brought there only to slaughter and kill our people. The people clapped, man. The people really dug it. They really dug this understanding, and that got off with me and made me feel like I was doing right. It showed me that the people had learned, and what the people had learned is that the party is what the party had learned. That's the reason the organization came to exist in the first place. If y'all want, we can pause for the cause again and discuss for a few minutes, because holy shit, is that an intense section right there. It's up to you guys.
That was super heavy. Even as I was reading it, I was like, wow, a lot of this feels like what I'm going through, you know? I'm not to the point where I got a shotgun set up, but someday, you know?
That's the thing. Like, you never know what the fucking pigs are gonna pull and what, conspiracies they will have going to come against our community in any way, shape, and form that they fucking can. They really can't stand there's people organizing against their fascist bullshit.
Yeah. And keep in mind that Bobby Hutton was 17 when he was killed.
Right? He was a kid.
17.
What's that, honey?
17 years old.
Yeah, he was the youngest member of the party.
A child.
Mm-hmm.
An child. And, the fact of the matter is, we had to keep it together, no matter what, because the masses were not ready to defend. And it was kind of like, what would happen if we reacted, because Kwame Ture talked about the LA riots, how they tore the whole place up, but they were instinctively conscious. They were unconscious, but they were instinctively conscious because of what had been happening leading up to the riots. And it was kind of like they had no kind of strategy to build off on, but they were aware of the condition. And I think a lot of those people at the time were. I mean, MLK was literally assassinated by the government 2 days before.
Yep.
And I think it was kind of like where a lot of people felt like, what else could we do? They killed him, and it was kind of like they felt doomed because they were killing Malcolm, they were killing, MLK, and a 17-year-old, and they killed another 17-year-old, Jonathan Jackson, George Jackson's little brother, at the house where he and a few others were holding the courthouse hostage in SoCal, I think, about a year before George was killed. It was kind of like, what the hell do we do? Because, we're angry and we're enraged, but it's like, we know what the fascists will do if we even, try to react, and that was what they had to really, really keep in mind. Like, it was a terrible year for everyone. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible. And like the assassination, the riots at the Democratic National Convention, Hutton's death, it was kind of like it was like everything was exploding all at once. And the Vietnam War was at its worst that year. It was a terrible year, honestly. It was a terrible, terrible year for everyone. And I think a lot of people were, mind you, this was the 60s. So, it's not the kind of level of consciousness that we should have now. It was just kind of like they felt doomed, and they were wondering, what the fuck can we do? They killed him. And it was kind of like a stepping stone to COINTELPRO really getting off the ground the way it did, and really fucked up those people. It really did. It really, really did. And with Bobby Hutton being 17 and almost turning 18, still being a kid nonetheless, it was kind of like, what the fuck else could they do? Do we riot and more of us be killed, or do we really keep it together and actually strategize on how the hell we can defend ourselves and our people, and move the struggle forward? It was kind of like, what the hell do we do?
Right. Because, I mean, if you riot in response, they take that as permission to just mow everybody the fuck down. They don't
Right.
care. They don't fucking care. They don't value anybody's fucking lives except their quote unquote brothers in blue. That's why, like, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago of the fucked up manipulative training that they get, they literally get it fucking hammered into their heads during their training. They get it psychologically fucking reinforced constantly of better to be carried by 6 than judged by 12, as in 6 Paul, or I'm sorry, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I had that backwards. Yeah. Because 6 pallbearers carrying your fucking casket versus sitting in front of a jury, which they already know most of them ain't ever gonna sit in front of a fucking jury in the first place. And right. When they do, They cry qualified immunity. They try to pretend, oh, I was afraid for my fucking life. No, you're just a bitch. So they will use any fucking excuse that they can to kill you because that's what they get fucking ingrained with. They get told that the first and foremost aspect of their job is for them to make it home at the end of the day. They don't get told your job is, protecting and serving the fucking community, because it's not. It never has been. They
No.
get told you kill whoever the fuck you need to, so long as you protect yourself and the other fucking pigs next to you.
Yeah.
It's a mind fuck. It's narcissistic, sociopathic mind fuck
It
of
is.
no feeling, no compassion for anybody else. Your only feelings are for and about your fucking self.
I mean, look
And
at what
that's toxic.
I mean, look at what they did to, the people that they forcibly drafted into the Vietnam War. Look at what happened to them. They were raping women and girls and torturing them all day, all night, taking Polaroids of them, getting high on heroin and other drugs, literally bombing villages, and literally becoming disabled mentally, psychologically, and physically, only to come back and be discarded. Because that's what they do. That's what they're doing to these people. That's what they're doing. That's why they want to recruit them, so that they can be able to use them as scapegoats. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's all there is to it. There is nothing material about the police system, because it came from us literally being surveilled by slave catchers, okay? So you already know that there's nothing to reform about something that's literally psychologically cooking you from the inside out. There's nothing of material basis to even change it. That's why we have to strategize, because these people have nothing to lose. They're literally on fight mode all the time. They're on fight mode all the time. We talked about this in Wretched of the Earth. We talked about this.
Yeah.
We talked about this. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing here. With the riots after MLK's assassination. I mean, the African lumpins, they were instinctively conscious, and they just had enough. They had enough. It was one death, more than enough to set them off. They tore every city up. LA, definitely Chicago, and definitely Detroit, New York, Philly. They were fed up.
Right.
They were hurting. Those people were hurting because they lost what they thought was their last hope. Because he was starting to struggle with them. They were fed up.
That right there is exactly why they target our leadership, to dishearten the masses who are actually getting inspiration from leaders who are telling them, no, stand up against this fucked up oppression.
Yeah. And when they killed MLK, of course they didn't tell anyone that, it was the government that did it, because they used James Earl Ray as a scapegoat. They already confirmed that. I mean, look at Selma. They were wiretapping his phone. Like, I mean, they don't even tell these people this, and they brainwash those people. I mean, the fight was lost because they were freaking brainwashed by, the system, the same system that they're literally killing themselves in every single day. It was kind of, what the fuck else could they do? There's nowhere to turn. They felt like there's no way out. That's why they even had an uprising in every single city that they were in, because it was like they had enough and they were hurting.
Mm-hmm.
They were devastated.
Sorry.
They were devastated deeply. And I think that it really rang a chord with everyone, given how terrible 1968 was. It's not even up for debate. It was, once again, it was a terrible, terrible year for everyone. For everyone. literally everyone. And it was the stepping stone to COINTELPRO being enacted the way it did under J. Edgar Hoover, and look at where we ended up now. You know?
Right. It was especially disheartening to the masses because they were looking at it like, if these motherfuckers can target and murder someone like MLK, then what the fuck? There really ain't nothing stopping them from coming after us when they can go after a public figure. And a lot of that targeting of him had to do with him changing his stance. The status quo, the fucking establishment, was perfectly fine with him when he was out here preaching about peaceful resistance. But as soon as he realized that you can't just fucking ask your oppressor to stop oppressing you, as Sister Asada said, and he started telling people, fuck, you know, we need to actually arm ourselves. He started carrying a sidearm himself. He had our predecessors in the original Panthers providing him armed security at events he was speaking at in the towns where, you know, we had pockets of Panthers, you know, already established. You know, he would make sure to meet up with them first when getting off of his planes. Like, okay, I need security. And so they were like, oh, wait a fucking minute. Now you're not talking peaceful resistance. Now you're talking armed resistance. And combine that with the fact that his Poor People's Movement was uniting people across the board of all ethnicities. They saw that as such a fucking enormous threat, and they were like, nope, we got to squash this right fucking now.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what they did.
that's
You know,
what got.
yeah, the burning house interview that he did, if people actually looked at the full interview, because, you know, once again, they don't like to, you know, hear the whole damn thing for whatever reason still, even to this day. If they actually listen to the full interview that the burning house quote came from, he was not talking about white people. He was not. He was not. That's a lie. He was talking about trying to make nice with essentially the belly of the beast, you know, the imperial core that we are in, and realizing that integrating with our common oppressor, not white people, was not the way to go.
Yep.
You know, the Civil Rights Act in 1964, yeah, fuck that. He realized that was a dud. It didn't do anything because what it did is literally salvage, literally destroy whatever African community, you know, they could find, and put highways through it, kick those people out, you know, making the slave factories worse. The poverty and the homelessness got worse. You know, the social dynamics and the communal violence got worse, because making nice makes that happen. And he realized that trying to make nice with the belly of the beast was a big mistake. That's why they killed him.
Yep. That awareness goes a long way. That Civil Rights Act was nothing but a fucking placation to, you know, try to pretend like they were ceding any fucking points there of, you know, oh, okay, I guess we'll acknowledge that you're human.
Yeah.
We won't change anything that dehumanizes you, though.
We won't, because we have to keep our power. That's the point. That's we're here. That's why we exist, right?
Right. They were like, just shush and calm down and get your hamster ass back on the wheel, because capitalism's got to keep making money off your fucking labor.
Yeah.
That's all that was.
It's all it was. And if those people stop going to work and stop buying, you know, our resources, you know, made possible by these people, they would sink immediately tomorrow. That's what Kwame Ture said in regards to Zionism. You know, that this is exactly the same thing. If those people stopped abiding completely, every single person, the Imperial Core would sink.
Yep. Yep. That's why, like, right now, I don't know if I told you, I've been finding a lot of videos of Ashkenazi Israelis who are in hiding right now because they have been calling out the Zionist regime. They have been calling out the IDF and speaking up against it and going, what the fuck are you doing? You are slaughtering people left and right. This is not okay. Not okay at fucking all. And so now the Zionist regime is targeting even, you know, the white Jews who are there in Israel because they're like, wait a minute, don't you dare undermine our fucking hegemony.
This is what we've been saying for years. Imperialism cares for no one. They don't care how loyal you are. They don't care if you're a settler or a colonized person. They don't care. If you speak out and struggle against their order, they will kill you. Or even if they won't kill you, they'll definitely force you into hiding. They will snatch you up. They will torture you. I mean, we already have 3 Palestinian prisoners of war dead so far, because of this the Zionist Nazi regime. Because they're freaking Nazis. If you want to know the truth, these Nazis that are literally killing, you know, their hostages and their own civilians that they care about so much.
Yep. Yep.
They
They don't give a fuck. They've never given a fuck. And, you know, it is a straight up ethnic cleansing. And anybody who's got any fucking ethical stance in committing class suicide is being targeted just as much as the Black and brown Jews that they've already been targeting and the Black and brown Palestinians that they've been targeting, because they're like, well, fuck you if you're on their side. Because they're fascist pieces of shit. It's just like what the Nazis did. Of first they came for the communists. They got people like psychologically fucking conditioned to just turning a blind eye, looking the other fucking way, because it wasn't affecting them yet. And the whole point of that fucking poem is speak the fuck up and stand up for people who are being targeted like that, so that it never gets to the point of them coming for you too, because they will.
They will. They will. Y'all should have listened to us years ago when we warned y'all about this. Didn't we tell you not to go to city council and try to make nice with them? Have we warned you? How many times? How many years? How many times have we warned you not to do that? Because now we're here. Because you want to keep making nice, and you didn't want to listen to us. You didn't want to listen to Asada. Y'all didn't want to listen to Kwame. Y'all didn't want to listen to Huey or Bobby, even when they became revisionists and lost their freaking minds. With the electoral shit. Y'all should have listened to them instead of letting the enemy tell you for them.
That's why it's important to read these books, because most people don't actually know fuck all about the Panthers, about what we've always been about. They don't know anything. They just know what the establishment's storyline is, and that's it. And that's why they got this fucked ideology in their head of thinking, oh, that's a terrorist group. No, the fuck it's not. Is it terrorism to feed your community, to provide health care and education for your community?
For free? I mean, that's the word, free.
Mm-hmm. For free. That being the part that pissed them off. Because it wasn't a capitalist enterprise. It was, how fucking dare you undermine the capitalist structure we have in place to profiteer off of this shit?
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but it's important. We have to go through and read these materials. We have to understand the firsthand accounts from the people who lived through it.
Right, because and once again, this is how you know a lot of people are not actually reading these books, because if they actually read Seize the Time, they would know that Huey and Bobby were vehemently against cultural nationalism in any way, shape, or form. If they actually read Wretched of the Earth, they would know that Frantz Fanon called for us to abandon racialistic language and thought altogether for national liberation, for national socialist identities, like, new our rightful identities, where we actually come from, as a part of our struggle. If they actually read the Red Book, they would understand about mass line. They will actually understand about mass base. They will understand about critique and self-critique. That's how you know they're not actually reading these books, because the only way you know that they are revisionist versus revolutionary is that they're actually studying these books.
Yep. Because if you actually were to read it, you'd know that the entire foundation of our ideology is anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobia. Why? Because the system itself, as Ms. Bell Hooks said, is white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. You can separate any of those facets from each other. This is what is intersectionality, not identity politics that the shitlibs play, but real intersectionality of understanding how all of these facets come together to oppress the masses. And you have to stand against them all.
At all times. At all times. That's literally the whole point. In class, this is a class issue. This is a class struggle. This is why we call this a class struggle, and rightfully so, because these are not individual phenomenons that happen to have a connection with each other. That's a lie, because they're all secondary contradictions to capitalism. Racism, sexism, racialism, biological reductionism, biological essentialism, transmissia, bimissia, all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it all comes together. Those are the things that uphold capitalism. And that's why the shit libs have co-opted the shit with, the fucking pink washing, the fucking rainbow capitalism bullshit. All of that is to try to make it part of, the capitalist enterprise, and pretend as if you buying a rainbow flag is somehow an act of solidarity that overcomes homophobia, for example. No, the fuck it's not. No, the fuck it's not. Like, you want to get your rainbow flag, fucking whatever, but don't pretend as if that is a fucking replacement for actually fighting back against the system doing the oppression.
And that right there is a clear-cut example of bourgeois culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Co-opting the fuck out of everything.
Pinkwashing is a part of it.
Yep.
Just keep that in mind.
So was the fucking systems starting to do free breakfast and lunch for kids at the school. They were co-opting the Panthers Feed the People programs and free breakfast programs for kids, because they were like, oh shit, we can't have these kids getting a proper political education from Panthers before they show up to the systems education for the fucking day. Fuck, I guess we should start giving them food for breakfast and get them to come here to eat instead, so that they're not getting deprogrammed over there at the community center.
Yeah.
Fucking co-opting.
Yep.
Does anybody else have some thoughts to toss in here? Shanti and I have been going for a while. We're good at that. Going once? Going twice? Okay. Would anybody like to take a turn reading the next section here of getting on the ballot? Which is reformism. Let's be clear. This is one of the things we have learned from, because hindsight is 2020, in realizing that reformist shit doesn't actually work because the system won't let you fucking change it from the inside out. So how about we learn about that right now?
Yeah. Read this. I can read this so that they
Go
can.
for it, sis.
Okay.
Please and thank you.
Okay, let me put my guitar down. Okay. Here we go, you guys. Getting on the ballot. After the April 6th shootout, we buried Bobby Hutton as Fanon had said we would and tried to get Eldridge out of jail. He was being held in Vacaville State Prison, about 50 miles east of Oakland. We began to mobilize people for the primaries that Huey and I were running in that June. Huey's trial had already been postponed several times, but the Peace and Freedom Party had been officially placed on the ballot. In May, while Eldridge was still in jail, Kathleen and I went to New York to help raise funds for Eldridge. I made a speech then that a lot of people wondered about. I said in my speech, "We hate you, white people." And I didn't put it in the proper context of what I wanted to say. We didn't hate anybody for the color of their skin, but at the same time, we were reserved towards a lot of white radicals who wouldn't move or do anything. A lot of people got upset over that part of the speech. I laugh about it sometimes because I'm truly not a diehard cultural nationalist. That night, I wanted to knock a play we had seen in New York, in which Leroy Jones and some others got on stage, silhouetted in shadows, and hollered, "Black, black, 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 black," that went on for about 9 or 10 minutes, and it just got absurd. Yeah. It kept going over black, 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 black. Every once in a while, a voice would change pitch, but it went on and on. It didn't make any sense. Clearly, it didn't. It didn't convey anything. We called Jones and Ron Karenga the high priests of cultural nationalism because they didn't really produce anything except fanatics. That is a big fact. They would have been better off if they were going to express anything, to talk about revolutionary culture in a way that would change something. 4 or 5 Panther brothers and I sat in the audience and ridiculed it amongst ourselves. When I made that speech, a lot of people asked questions. Take everything else in that speech, and when you come to the statement, "We hate you, white people," weigh it with everything else I said. I was ridiculing the cultural nationalism of Jones and his black, black, black. They were embedding a form of black racism in the minds of the people rather than giving them proper perspective of the revolutionary struggle. That last sentence right there, that's exactly what we've been talking about. You cannot have cultural nationalism. It doesn't work that way. You can say black, black, black however many times, and it will not bring about change for African people. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. In New York, people were interested in Brother Eldridge, Brother Huey, Huey's trial, and in the fact that the cops had murdered Bobby Hutton. Cops attempting to attack and wipe out the party had caused the party to grow. And when we left New York on May 22nd, 1968, their first chapter was forming. The primaries were coming, and we did a lot of campaign work. We had acquired a new office before the April 6th shootout. The Bay Area Committee to Defend Political Freedom raised some money and printed up 50,000 broadsides about what the government was doing to Huey. Half of the reason we ran Huey was to let people see that Huey wasn't what the power structure was trying to picture him as, a small-time hoodlum. Throughout the primary campaign, there was a lot of conflict. We had trouble with other Black groups who were trying to run in the 7th Congressional District, with some Peace and Freedom people over $1,300 we thought we were supposed to have, and with some of the brothers and sisters who still didn't understand the significance of running Huey P. Newton for Congress. The night of the primary, our workers went out to get tallies of the vote, and the power structure gave them the runaround. They were told that votes weren't counted at the polls, but were counted downtown at the county clerk's office. They went down to the county clerk's office and were told votes were counted at the polls. The brothers and sisters got very discouraged when they came in that night and could only give estimates of the vote. When they tallied them up, they came up with only 70 or 80 votes. They thought that Huey was not going to get on the ballot, and everybody was disturbed, thinking that not enough people would even take time to vote Huey's name onto the ballot. But I said, what are you what are you talking about? We're going to be on the ballot by 3 or 4 times the votes we need. They didn't believe it. I went down to the Peace and Freedom Party office and I took the votes they had tallied up from the Black community and put them together with the ones they had come in for the Peace and Freedom Party in the white community. We stood there and watched, and a lot of people started coming in with votes from everywhere. The next titling we knew, we were way over what we needed. So I called up the brothers and sisters and told them, hey, we're on the ballot. They felt a little better then. We still believe a lot of the votes went uncounted. In the actual election, Huey got 25,000 votes, but I think the votes were tampered with because they definitely wouldn't let us anywhere near the counting. The primaries were important to the Free Huey campaign. We talked about the trial and educated the masses of people about who Huey was so that people could come out and support him. A vote for him was a vote of support. One thing we found out for sure was how many thousands of voters really support the party. A person will have to support the Black Panther Party and know something about our basic ideas to vote for a member of our party who is on the ballot. Although presently we aren't running any candidates, we will work for candidates who support the 10-point program, platform and program of the Black Panther Party.
I just want to make a very quick note before we move into the next section about Huey's trial. That this right here exemplifies why it is a fucking exercise in futility to try to participate in the fucking system's electoral politics, because that right there screams that they fucked with the number of votes, that they altered the number of votes that they were actually getting from those ballots to try to fucking stop anybody who was not an establishment pick, and especially someone who is anti-establishment, from actually fucking getting into office. Why? Because they ain't gonna fucking allow you in there.
They're not. And I'm very, very glad once again the cultural nationalism, the play that they went to. I mean, if I went there and I heard blank, blank, blank for an hour, I will fucking leave after 5 minutes.
Right. That had to have been really fucking annoying. Like, that is not even a play. You're not saying anything. You're just up there looking like fucking idiots, you know?
Because they are, and they think that cultural nationalism. I mean, mind you, Ron Karenga had everything to do with Munchie Carter being killed on UCLA's campus. Like, I mean, that literally says enough. Like, I mean, the US org, come on. Like, come on. We already know, I mean, because Ron Karenga was the Minister of Culture for the Republic of New Africa in the very beginning when they established it. And you wonder why, and once again, you wonder why you don't hear Karenga's name. You wonder why you don't hear Karenga's name be mentioned, because he was a stooge for the FBI, and he also tortured some African women and supposedly stole the idea of Kwanzaa from a new African woman. So there you go. Like, you know, that whole play, if you could even call it that, I'm glad that they were really ridiculing that play. Because what the fuck is that? Like, really?
Exactly.
I would, like I'm telling you, I would be hella annoyed and would leave immediately, because, like, if y'all really think this is any kind of proletariat play, that's a fucking lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. I mean, literally, it's ridiculous.
They didn't have proletarian ideology at fucking all.
Like they thought that you could wear the shikis and an afro and, you know, afro sheen hairspray and call that a struggle.
I love that you called out the fucking afro sheen.
Yeah. See, you know, afro sheen that be popping back in the late 60s and 70s. I mean, that shit was popping back then. That was
Right.
that was day. My mom was born in 71. That shit was popping everywhere. So you already know, you you know.
Mhm. Mhm. Matter of fact, it just made a memory flashback in my head. There's this couple that I've come across their videos a few times. They do really hilarious videos of like foolish ass workouts dressed up in like gear like you would see in the late 70s, early 80s of, you know, the spandex riding right up your ass with the biker shorts.
Yeah.
And the husband has, you know, big, beautiful natural curls, and he'll be in the middle of these workout routines and grab a bottle of Afro Sheen, just spraying his shit. You know, they're making light of everything about that time period, you know, but yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And you know, it's hilarious that they were making themselves look like fools
Mhm.
on stage.
Yeah.
Because once again, this is why we warn about cultural nationalism. Once again, this is how you know they're not actually reading these books, because if they actually read these books, they would know it's a freaking cautionary tale against any form of cultural nationalism. You cannot use culture alone as means of struggle. You have to actually make it an active revolutionary proletariat base. You cannot use
Right.
it for think that's struggle. That's not struggle. You can literally change your name to a Congo name or an Igbo name or Yoruba name, a Zulu name, whatever. You know, whatever group you may descend from, because New Africans are descendants of many different indigenous African groups who are kidnapped, right? You know, you can literally change your name uh, to any one of those groups, and you would still be a fascist. So, like,
It changes nothing about the status quo or how the system sees you, treats you. It changes not a goddamn thing. But there's a huge difference between cultural nationalism versus cultural revolutionaryism. You know, do we need cultural revolution? Yeah.
that's
Do we need cultural nationalism? No, that doesn't
that's a,
actually address anything.
that's a big difference. There's a big difference, and once again, literally calling out the cultural nationalists even by their names, including Karenga's ass. I'm glad for that, because once again, these, you know, it was kind of like they were they were literally saying blank, blank, blank into a wall. You know, it was not doing anything. What was it, radicalizing the people watching that BS play that they had, all that mess they got going on that stage? No, no, no.
It was the easiest lines to ever remember for a play. Takes no effort, no talent.
No effort, but it's something. But they weren't, you know, they weren't saying anything. They were screaming loud but saying nothing. You know, and another part of the electoralism that they were doing, thinking that that shit was going to work. Newsflash, it didn't. Obviously, in fact, if in fact the conservative mayor that won that particular election made Oakland worse.
Yeah.
Much, much, much worse. So
Yeah. And that was
clearly,
the reactionary response to them even trying to, you know, get into electoral politics. It drove things even further reactionary and further, you know, towards right-wing extremism.
it was kind of like adding ammunition, and this is what Asada has been telling us, and still we don't want to listen. How many times have we told people not to go to these oppressors and beg them, you know, for change? Because it's only ammunition and ammunition only against your life. You're literally, it's kind of like a small set suicide mission, even though it doesn't look like one. Like you're literally putting your community at more risk of reactionary BS by the system. You know, I mean, they did all that shit trying to go to city council, you know, to uh not build the cop academy that we have now, and it still ended up being built. And they still closed down the 50 schools. under Emmanuel and closed down all the mental health clinics and, all that stuff. So, like,
Yep, it only changed things for the worse. And that's the thing, like, I understand, given the context of the time,
yeah,
why they tried it, because this was a point in time when Black people had not even had the vote for very long at all.
right,
So there was little to no representation, if anything, any fucking where, of the Black community in local politics or higher. None. So I understand why they were like, well, maybe we can get somewhere with this, and we're actually trying to get some representation in there for the communities to be able to try to invoke some change. They didn't have anything prior to that to have some hindsight on and see the system isn't going to allow you to do that. We have the privilege now of being able to see in hindsight that it was ineffective and that the system was like, nope, we're going to shut that right the fuck down. How dare you, because the system don't want revolutionaries in office on any fucking level. I mean, they don't even like it on city council level to this day. Look at what's happened in Flint. Eric Mays, who I've known for years. He's one of my comrades who marched with me during Occupy. He was one of the people going with us and calling out the city council, going, fuck you, what are you guys doing? You're over here lining your own fucking pockets and not addressing the water crisis, not addressing any of the shit that's happening that's actually harming our fucking communities. What the fuck? And because of him being a revolutionary, the people voted him onto the city council to try to actually get some change in there. And from day one, the rest of the fucking council has done nothing but attack him. They have set him up. They have framed him for bullshit. They have even drugged him at a fucking council dinner.
wait, what?
And yes, like he literally had a couple of fucking beers and got caught driving the wrong way down the expressway because somebody fucking drugged him at that dinner. Okay, so the system itself will fuck with you if you even manage to get into city council. That is how fucked it is, still to this day.
Drugging. Oh wow.
Yep.
Oh wow.
And
Ugh.
it's fucking ridiculous.
It's
It's absolutely fucking ridiculous.
That's some wild shit.
Uh-huh. Like I still follow, the videos that they kick out of those city council meetings. And every time Eric tries to bring anything up of invoking any kind of change in how shit is being run there, the whole council fucking attacks him. Especially the bougie ass fucking white ones. Especially.
that.
And it's really fucking heinous. It's genuinely disappointing to see even members of the Black community who we used to think years ago during those Occupy days were actually people who had our backs and were willing to listen. No, they were just fucking pandering to us. Even they attack Eric for voicing anything that needs to be changed in the community. So, this is 60 years after what Huey and them were trying to do back then, and it's still a massive symptom of the system that if you come in trying to invoke change, they will fuck with you as hard as they can.
They will.
It's just
it's just simple as that. It's just simple as that. And a lot of us still don't get it. Because I mean, look at where we are now. Because we don't want to listen to Asada and these people. Because we still don't want to listen to them. Because we're still using the same dogmatic revisionist strategies and thinking that we're getting somewhere, deluding ourselves and not even doing mass line, no kind of critique, no kind of self-critique, no kind of real boots on the ground work, like None of that. Still, even after
Still.
all of this time.
Because nothing's changed, sis. Nothing. Not a fucking thing. The system is still the same as it was then. And that's why we got to call out this reformist shit and be able to show people examples like this of, like, no, we are not in some fucking post-racial society. No, we are not out of any kind of fucking oppression. None of that. Nothing has fucking changed. Fundamentally, nothing has changed.
Right. And if everything did change, then why in the hell are there 4 genocides going on right now?
Thank you. Thank you. Mic drop. Thank you. Fuck.
2 of them, 3 of them in my homeland, mind you.
Yep.
The Tigray people, the Congo people, and the Nile Valley is under siege because of the genocide against the Sudanese people, and one of them, the Tigray people, in a country that was supposedly never colonized, right?
Doesn't matter. They have a wealth of resources that the fucking colonizers want to steal. Because let's be honest. Okay, let's talk some fucking parenti wisdom here. That
Okay.
Africa is not poor.
It's
You
not.
do not colonize areas that are poor. You colonize areas that have massive wealth of resources. And when you look at the entire globe, guess where the most valuable resources and the largest deposits of them are at? Is in Africa. The gold, the fucking minerals, the metals, the things that we use for all of our technology is in Africa.
Cobalt.
Yes.
Cobalt stuff. Coffee, we literally have everything, just like this continent. We both have everything, but especially, in Africa, it's literally like endless. That's why, they destroy our continent and literally destroy any kind of growth, because we have the resources. I mean, that's why they're literally doing Palestine right now, because they have gas reserves,
oil and natural gas.
Oil and natural gas. Like, this is not about religion. This is not about religion at all. It's not.
No, that's a cover.
Resources. Our resources. The same thing that is happening to Africa is the same thing happening to Palestine. And you wonder why we have such a close bond with each other. Not only are we to each other, but we also have the same struggle for our resources. That's it.
Yep, because Africa is not fucking poor. It never fucking has been. It is overexploited.
It's overexploited. It's overexploited. We're not poor, and we don't need help, because the help that we got destroyed our continent even further and have more of these compradors up in the countries that are supposedly independent from England, from Italy, from France, from Spain, from Portugal, from Germany, from the Dutch. And they think that, we made progress and, we're moving the continent forward. No, that's a lie, because we have 4 genocides still going on right now as we speak. And not only do we have 3 to be specific, South Africa is still there.
Yeah. With all of its emerald mines, like what Elon Musk's fucking parents own, with slave labor mining emeralds so that this fucking colonizer British family can be the most wealthy fucking family on the planet.
Right. And mind you, Elon Musk is, I think, Pennsylvania, Dutch, and German. So put 2 and 2 together here, you guys, please. Like, seriously.
And if I remember correct, I'm pretty sure his parents were British nationals, regardless of like being actually of Dutch and German descent and whatnot. But that's part because this is a British colony. So they were given the leeway of, sure, go snatch up some fucking land that ain't yours and call those mineral resources yours. And that right there is exactly why that became an apartheid state, why every other part of Africa and of the Arabian Peninsula have been colonized, is because what does it take to go steal those fucking resources? It takes fucking genocide of killing off the people that those fucking resources actually belong to. So then these fucks can play this game and pretend like, well, we conquered it, so this is our shit now, right? No,
Look,
Columbus, it's not.
no. I mean, in the two-state solution, look at what happened to Ireland. Did they think about that? About Ireland? About
Thank
Ireland?
you, excellent fucking example.
They
Beautiful
fucked
moment to
over. They fucked Ireland over that way.
And here's a beautiful moment to point out that the only fucking good Republican on the world, or on the entire planet, is an Irish Republican.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is another gentle reminder to support the Irish Republican Army, please and thank you.
Right. They are freedom fighters. They are anti-colonist. They have been from day one. They're just trying to get their own home back. Because it's still under British rule and has been for way too fucking long.
Way too long. And this is another cautionary tale. This chapter, this portion right here. Like, come on, you guys.
Indeed. All right. We have dove into discussion for somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes now. So, if y'all want, we can read one more section and discuss and then wrap things up. By then we should be at about 2 hours for the meeting. Is there anybody else who would like to take a turn reading? If so, pop your hand up, speak up. If not, I'll go read again.
I can fill in if you need me. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Go for it.
I like to give you a break. Y'all working hard out there.
Thank you, Stone.
Mhm. We knew before Huey's trial began in mid-July that the whole power structure wanted to hang Huey. We understood that William Noland, the publisher of the Oakland Tribune, the mayor, the other politicians, the DA, and the cops were all so treacherous that they would do anything to get a conviction and send Huey to the gas chamber. We asked Charles Gary a number of times what he thought would happen. He would run it down, how Huey was really innocent, and how the two cops had shot each other in an attempt to kill Huey. He knew that defending Huey was the most necessary thing that a lawyer could do to save human integrity, because the power structure was attempting to crucify a black man who was the heir of Malcolm X. Huey P. Newton, the man who put in motion a revolutionary movement to bring the struggle to a higher level. Brother Malcolm had educated black people to the need for a political party like the Black Panther Party, and Charles Gary understood this. Charles told us that Lowell Jensen, the DA prosecuting Huey, knew that Huey wasn't guilty. He said that even though these cats were going to do everything possible to get a guilty verdict, and that even though he shared our understanding of how corrupt we felt the legal system was, he knew that we should get a not guilty verdict. We should definitely get a not guilty. The trial started and Charles defended Huey. The way the trial went down, the so-called kidnap charge had to be dropped right away. The person who was supposed to have been kidnapped came forth on the witness stand and refused to testify. Later, he said that he had been intimidated by the police to make false statements. Imagine that. They tried to set Huey up as the only person who could have done the shooting. Gene McKinney, who was with Brother Huey on the evening when the cops tried to kill him, came to the witness stand, and Jensen and the judge tried to force him to testify. He refused. He took the Fifth Amendment. The judge is supposed to be impartial, if nothing else, but he was working with the DA through the whole trial. The main prosecution witness Jensen put up against Huey was a bus driver named Greer, who said that he had gotten a clear look at the shooting. Gary found a passenger who was on the bus who completely contradicted Greer's story and said that Greer couldn't have seen anything. Apparently, months before, when the police first asked Greer questions, he had initially stated, "I didn't get a clear look at who was shooting." He said he didn't get a clear look. However, on the police report that Jensen had entered in as evidence for the jury to have and read over, this particular statement had been changed to, I did get a clear look. It had been changed by the DA and the cops. Greer was lying on the stand and Jensen knew it. It came out during the trial that Greer's first interview had been taped by the police department. Gary got hold of the tape, duplicated it, and brought it to court while the jury was trying to decide on our Minister of Defense. Gary argued in court that the tape recording showed that somebody had tampered with the written transcript and that the DA had knowingly submitted that crap as evidence. Gary didn't take any crap from the judge. He played the tape recording, argued with the judge, and finally got the judge to recognize the tape recording as the real evidence and order that a new transcript be made, in which Greer said, I didn't see who did the shooting. Even though they brought the new transcript into the jury room, no one on the jury was told that this was new evidence, so they didn't bother to read it. Of course. Gary's a hardworking revolutionary lawyer who really goes after the facts. All during the trial, he worked in the evenings investigating and digging up evidence to prove Brother Huey's innocence. We waited in those days when the jury was out on Brother Huey, and we knew that they had to come up with a not guilty verdict, especially if they read the last piece of evidence Gary had submitted. We didn't really know it at the time, but we speculated that Judge Monroe Freedham was really working in conjunction with the power structure which was trying to get Huey railroaded, and that, because of him, the jury didn't know about the new evidence. We didn't put it past the power structure to try to buy out a member of the jury or anything like that, but we felt that someone on that jury would know the real facts after having read them and would realize that Brother Huey wasn't guilty, not even of voluntary manslaughter. That night, we heard that the jury had reached a verdict. We had said, if they kill Huey P. Newton, the sky is the limit. We meant every word of that. If they kill Huey P. Newton, the sky is the limit. We were going to go down with Brother Huey because Huey was the leader of our party. But the sky is the limit also meant that we would go to the highest court if necessary. They had thousands of cops around in those days when the jury was deliberating, so you couldn't go 2 blocks anywhere throughout the black community without seeing a regular city police car or a highway patrol car. I had also heard that they had secretly placed National Guardsmen in different places around Oakland and San Francisco. You couldn't go 2 blocks in that city day or night, especially in the afternoon, without seeing a cop car with 2, 3, or 4 policemen in it, with shotguns and helmets and all that riot equipment. That's how tight the cities of Oakland, San Francisco, Berkeley, and Richmond were. I was at home at my mother's house, and my mother came in and said, Bobby, did you hear that on TV? They said that the jury has reached a verdict on Huey P. Newton. I jumped up and got into a car and drove over to David Hilliard's house. When I got there, it was on the radio that they had found Huey guilty of 3rd-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter. I just couldn't see that. That pissed me off. It really made me mad. And some brothers started saying, let's burn the town down. Let's burn the town down. At that point, I remembered that there had been a press interview on TV a few days before the jury came out. Huey's asked, what do you mean by the sky is the limit? Huey had said that he was sure that he would not be convicted at all, but that if he was, the party would fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. Huey also had sent a message to us that we should defend ourselves if unjustly attacked, but that we just didn't believe in spontaneous rioting. I was sitting in the house and this brother was talking about, oh man, let's go burn it down. Let's go burn it down. I told them no, that they couldn't do it. A lot of party members were calling up from all over town asking, what should we do? What should we do? We told them, cool it and don't do anything. We're not supposed to do anything. They haven't killed the brother, I said. We said that if they kill Huey P. Newton, the sky is the limit. But right now, the sky is the limit in terms of the legal fight because they got Huey in for 2 to 15 years, and we're going to have a 1.5 to 2 year fight on our hands trying to get Huey free. We're going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what Huey P. Newton said, and that's what we're going to do. Don't be running out in the streets there, I said, because there's so many cops out there now that if you turn your head wrong, man, you might get shot down. You'll just be brutalized and murdered. From there, we started getting petitions signed demanding that Huey P. Newton be given appeal bond because a 3rd-degree conviction allowed a man to have bail. But Judge Friedman, racist and punkish as he was, wouldn't give Huey the bond. Huey's now in some jail in San Luis Obispo, They had denied him bail while the case goes to the higher courts. He is nothing but a political prisoner. The whole 10-point platform program and the party's true ideology and philosophy came out during Huey's trial. Although much of the press didn't want to print it, it would have been in our favor if people had learned the truth. People would have known the real objectives of the Black Panther Party. Charles Gary is the man who really brought all that out and was able to set forth the philosophy and ideology of the Black Panther Party. A lot of judges in the future are going to try and cut it off, but they can't separate our ideology and our philosophy from ourselves when they trump charges up on us and try to railroad us to prisons and jails. That kind of gave me goosebumps, that last sentence there. I like that. A lot of judges in the future are going to try and cut it off, but they can't separate our ideology and our philosophy from ourselves. That's the way it should be for any Panther.
Goddamn right. Absolutely. It speaks volumes. Like that was fucking prophetic because look, this shit's still happening today. It's been 60 fucking years. Damn near. And it's still fucking happening today.
You want me to keep going?
Does anybody have any commentary on that section? If not, we can just move right on to the next. Going once, going twice. I see no hands. Might as well. Go for it, Stone.
All right. Pigs, Puritanism, and racism. One Tuesday night around midnight, right after the verdict on Huey had come down, 2 Oakland pigs just drove up in front of the Panther National Headquarters office and emptied 12 rounds into it. One shell shot the window all up and another went into the cafe next door. Luckily, no one was in the office at the time. They talk about law and order. It's a felony to shoot inside of any building where people are living. There are apartments in the back of the building and apartments upstairs. You dig where it's at? These dudes are breaking the law, but they keep saying we are the lawbreakers. Huey always made us follow the law to the letter, because within the confines of following the law to the letter, Huey had a principle. The principle was that laws are made by mankind to serve mankind, but once those laws stop serving mankind in any society, anywhere in the world, the people are supposed to move forth to change those laws so those laws will serve them. That's how intensely the whole party has related to this system. That's what people never know. It's very dangerous to try to bring about this change, especially when you are messing with a tyrannical, despotic system. Most people, most middle-class people, don't understand that the system is very despotic and very tyrannical. Now those pigs were there, waiting for something to happen in Oakland because of the guilty verdict, you dig? They were on the lookout for a panther, for any cat in a black leather jacket to shoot him, to blow him away. They had murder and malice in their hearts. When you read the law book on the charge of murder, it says malice and intent. That's what it says. The same bulls were waiting there, but they couldn't find any panthers, so they decided to shoot up the office. Even Police Chief Gaines saw that the incident could be politically destructive to the whole police department. We've been down on the police department for 2 years talking about the acts of brutality and murder they'd committed in the black community. 2 hours later, Gant suspended them from the force. Boom. Then he charged them with a felony, shooting into an inhabited building, and fired them from the police force. Gain was running around trying to defend himself by doing these 2 pigs in. Later, the court let them off with 2 or 3 years probation. He didn't use the excuse that they were drunk. He said stuff like, well, they're human and they didn't like the way the verdict came down and blah, 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 blah. And I want all you other police officers not to feel this way. But at the same time, we must remember that these were only 2 police officers, etc. He also, I know, same stuff you hear in the news today. He also had to appeal to all the police officers. He's got over 1,000 cops. He appealed to them through the newspapers and the mass media. Don't do anything else. Let us keep our heads, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff exposed those pigs. The racism was placed out front where it belongs. You dig? The people saw it for what it was. There's a lot of good cops in the police force, but you don't go around depending on 20% of the force on the good cops when 80% of the force is fucking you up. Every time we turned around, those pigs would be blasting people away, arresting dudes, railroading them, and attacking cats. So you can't depend on them. We attacked that racist aspect of the police department. Then we had a big scene about Gain hiring cops from the South. We found out that one of the Oakland pigs came from Florida. Down South, it's a bitch. The average white person down South really envelops himself in this superiority bullshit that's very important to understand. Really, I'm a liberal. All that's a bunch of bullshit. Black people know it. They don't want to hear it. Don't be calling colored and those Negroes and speak articulately with a lot of verbal sincerity around it. Fuck that, because black people don't want to hear it. That shit's 100 years old, as old as the Emancipation Proclamation. Later for that. Down south, the cops get an orientation that is really laid on by the local power structure, and they project all these ideas and misconceptions about black people. It's just a perpetuation of an institutionalization of racism itself. We don't practice racism. We practice dualism, two ways of thinking. Most people don't understand what the Panther Party means by this. What we did was research a lot of history. This is what Huey did. This is what Eldridge did. We researched it all the way back to Europe. Not only are we down on white racism, but we are down on black racism. You know, the cultural nationalists say, I'm black, I'm beautiful. Most of those cats will project a puritanical concept of blackness. They relate only to the purity of blackness, of being a black person. When we say blackness, we mean relating to black culture. These cats, they hang themselves up. White people have always projected in their educational institutions, etc., a very puritanical, very absolute superiority thing. This is projected in what they teach us in the school systems. So what do we get? I'll give you a few examples to show you what I mean. You're looking at a soap opera. Mary, you cannot marry John. Mother, why? John has an illegitimate child. Oh, mother. Wow, they go through all these goddamn fucked up changes, but this is directly related to something. Sometimes during a speech, Eldridge would say, power comes out of the lips of a pussy, just like that. Then 20 minutes later, he'll turn right back around and say, power comes out of the barrel of a dick. People don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But I tell him, Eldridge, I understand exactly what you're saying because I know what's happening. In Soul on Ice, Eldridge says it's very necessary to relate the mind to the body. They both must function together to survive. That's key. So take the analogy of a human being. There's these very practical things of the mind and the body functioning together, and relate them to a whole society having a government with people in it who are supposed to serve the people. The government becomes the mind that leads the people, that represents the people, it gives them proper representation. When you start talking about relating the mind to the body of each individual, practicing this dualism, this two-way thinking, you're talking about man. Then you have a thing where the power structure, the government, mass forces and guns, goes to Vietnam, kills poor people, masses forces in black community, police forces are doubled, tripled, and quadrupled, and murder and brutalizing goes on all around the world. The people who are the government is the people who the government is supposed to represent want to bring themselves into a part of the government, but the government is cutting them off. In an individual, if his head were cut off, it would be a very direct tragedy. A mind being separated from a body. Neither would survive, neither would function without the other. So when you're talking that way, you're relating to the essence of the body. The dick on a man, we say it just like that, and the pussy on a woman are related to reproducing human beings. This is what this all relates to. This is how human beings come about. But we have to check out history now. See how in the fuck we were taught that sex, pussy, and dicks were bad and nasty things. In California, now there's a controversy about whether or not sex should be taught to kids. Why do we have to go through this controversy? 3 billion people on the face of this motherfucking earth got here through good old down home human screwing. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. It does make me chuckle. Yeah, whatever. It's ironic because that's exactly what he's talking about right now. We see these things so, but I'm learning.
He's bluntly honest. I dig it.
Yeah. I got to be more mature, Okay, anyways, I'm gonna back up. 3 billion people on the face of this motherfucking earth got here through good old down home human screwing. You got here that way. I got here that way. Everybody got here through good old down home screwing. How in the hell can sex be nasty and bad? Who in the fuck would project such an image? So you ask the question, why the fuck did this happen? All you have to do is relate back to history and see how different societies developed and see how different concepts took over those societies and became dominant and pervaded the society, the minds of its people, and how they were perpetuated up to now. So as Huey said, let's go back. Let's go to Europe. Let's take Europe and let's take Africa. Let's take two different peoples, even though before they met each other, let's take Europe. Europe had the one-headed God concept, the all pure God, right? The pure blood, and my son of pure blood will become king, and my daughter of pure blood will become queen. This is the thing that went down through history. This is directly related to this purity of God bullshit, the single-headed God, the one-headed God. It's not just the idea of the one-headed God, but what people projected and put into it. People said, I'm made of the image of God. Boom. They're made in the image of this pure-headed, who's absolute, who's all superior, who's all pure, so goddamn pure that people began to read things into that bullshit and began to reject their basic animal drives. But even the masses of people in Europe screwed. They had a tendency to accept the so-called bad things about themselves. It was that monarchy, that government, that king and queen and hierarchy that laid the rules out, and they themselves projected themselves in this puritanical image of God. They were created in the image of God, and they had the power and the guns and the force to see that everybody stayed pure. And if you didn't stay pure, then you were a witch and you were burned at the stake. This happened even before they met Black Africans. Europeans were lynching people then. I'm not saying all societies in Africa didn't have this puritanical concept, but many societies they call primitive, even some outside of Africa, had what many people define as pagan gods, a two-headed god system or a three-headed god system. They also said they were made in the image of God. You look at the society and the way people develop, and you look back in history, and you can find these things out. This head was a three-headed god with a neutral head, a bad head, and a good head. They said they were made in the image of God, so they were able to accept the bad things and the good things about themselves. But the European monarchies perpetuated this purity bullshit, tabooing things like sluts or those who were downgraded and under their feet. You're a vassal. This projection by the monarchy of I am the greatest and all that shit was very bad for human society because it was a process of chopping the head from the body of the government heads being cut away from the mass of the people. The Africans mostly had the two-headed God system, bad and good, and said they were made in the image of God. Maybe it developed out of the fact that they had so much fucking food and fucking land down there, they didn't have to worry about a bunch of bullshit. It may be related to industrial development and poor peoples. I don't know. So when the European met the African, when the whole economic development of using slaves came about, these taboos were ingrained in the minds of the people in the European society, especially with the monarchy projecting that purity for the people. This is all just so intellectual, and I keep getting surprised by what I'm reading, but then I'm like, wait a second, it's Bobby Seale, you know, so it shouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
He's
at all.
so bluntly, and it's just so
Yeah.
fucking beautiful. I love the way that he calls shit out, and you know, it's eye-opening to look at this of, you know, oh well, they said they were made in the image of God, but what it really is that if you look at it, the human characteristics, the personalities, all of that shit that are attributed to these gods and goddesses, no, the gods and goddesses were made in the image of humans.
Yeah.
They
And
were
he
just
speaks
fucking
so
flawed.
simply, but he has such a thorough understanding of what he's talking about that you just can't help but understand, you know, and that's what I love it. I hope that someday I can write like that.
Right? It's fucking
True
inspiring.
intellectualism, you know, without all the frivolity and, you know, the liberal bullshit people do.
Right.
All right. I'm going to keep going. If I can remember where I'm at. At the top, I think.
Right here, you left off it. They were burning white people at the
Thank you.
stake.
They were burning white people at the stake in their own society even before they met Africans. They even got transported over to America. This thing about witches. They even have a tendency to carry it on now. They superficialize the witch, like the one on TV, Samantha, a good little puritanical witch. It's a thing with them. You have to understand society and have a concept of how human beings function to be able to see them and to be able to define how things will go, especially if you try to relate directly to it. When the Panther Party first came on the scene, the man said, they're all anti-white. They're a bunch of black racists. We never considered ourselves a bunch of black racists. They're going to come in our communities and they're going to shoot us all up. This wasn't the thing at all. We're saying we aren't going into the white community shooting up white people. We're going to defend ourselves against those racists who already occupy our community, those pigs and others who come down and shoot us up. We're going to defend our community because we want the power to determine our own destiny in our own black community. We have a right to this, brother, the way we've been treated for 400 years. This is what we want. At the same time, we say we hope to civilize all of those who are racist in their own communities or who relate to it, who don't understand what the fuck is going on. Boom. Oh no, they can't do that. They have guns. They've got to be racist. They accuse us of being what they are. They're projecting. What we're saying is you don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. The thing is to define what the fuck is the water. We're saying it's the mass of people. We say that the water represents a very defensive thing. We say that the people have a right to pick up guns. They're the water. All the people, the hippies, the yippies, the whites, the blacks, the Vietnamese, they have a right to pick up guns to defend themselves against the fire of aggression. That's why we go through a long process of trying to educate the people, all of them. The hippies, the whites, blacks, everybody. We try to organize them. We're talking about revolution in the mother country. We have a tendency to parallel the mother country with relating only to the mind and the black colony being related to the body. Eldridge says that the closest this country has ever come to relating the mind to the body symbolically was when we heard rumors of Jacqueline and John F. Kennedy doing the twist inside the White House, because to wiggle your butt is very low down in white society. Elvis Presley is a white boy who wiggles his legs and wiggles his ass. What is he doing? We felt something was happening. A change was occurring. A lot of hippies appeared. The hippies denounced their mamas and daddies. You're a bunch of capitalist exploiting bastards and you relate to racism. I don't even want to hear you. I don't even want to talk to you. They tried to escape. We respect them because they were trying to redeem themselves in their own way from the racism that they've been caught up in. But you can't look at them as individuals. You have to look at them as a collective group and a development. If you don't look at it that way, you won't see it. I can always talk about myself as an individual. Huey can talk about himself as an individual. At the same time, we're still a collective group because we always tell black people, we don't give a fuck whether you're wearing a pimp suit, whether you're wearing an African gown, whether you got a natural on, whether you're wearing a Black Panther uniform, whether you live in Africa, whether you're over in Vietnam. Because wherever you are, the racists and the imperialists will brutalize, murder, and oppress you because they've been doing it for 400 years and they're still practicing it. Many leftists, hippies, and yippies will go out to redress their grievances against something they see that's dead wrong. Appear to me that war is wrong. But what happens? The same goddamn things that have been perpetuated against all the colored peoples of the world. The pigs whipped their heads and cracked their skulls. They stopped and they said, wait a minute, you guys are really right. Police brutality is a motherfucker. It's something else. It's bad. All we're doing is saying we want some land, some bread, some housing, some education, some clothing, some justice, some peace. When we say that, they go through a bunch of sincerity bullshit that you hear on the radio. So-and-so from the NAACP in conjunction with Governor Reagan and representatives from so-and-so are now investigating the school and integration problem. They are also concerning themselves with how welfare recipients receive their blah, blah, blah. That's all we hear. Bob Dylan sings about one of those cats. You don't know what is happening, do you, Mr. Jones? Okay, so he eats his motherfucking salami sandwich on sour French bread with cheese and mayonnaise and lettuce and all this motherfucking bullshit in the middle of a TV program. Meanwhile, while he's doing that, either there's a pimp on the block thinking about robbing some joint, or he's pimping some chick, or he's beating somebody's ass, or there's a mother over here wondering how she's going to feed her kids tomorrow morning, or the mother's tired, black and broke. She had to work 20 years like my mother worked. She used to scrub kitchens like that woman you see over there. You've seen her over there, that black woman right next door there. She sweeps, and I don't know what kind of pay she gets. She may even get paid good. I don't know. But my mother used to work for $1 an hour. I even remember when my mother worked for 75 cents an hour scrubbing those floors. She'd come home with shopping bags. She's tired. So you have a woman like that, another cat going to jail, hundreds of them getting busted by the pigs. Some cop walks up to them and says, I'm not even saying that, where are you going? And this black man standing there and says, I'm not a nigger. What you mean? Don't call me that. Or if he doesn't want to defend himself, he says, I'm going down the street, sir. It doesn't make any difference whether he rises up and defends himself or whether he tires to use the use the technique of meekness and acquiescence. He's still being brutalized or murdered. We read in the papers that so-and-so was allegedly committing a burglary. I'm not saying that some of the brothers aren't committing burglaries. I'm not even condoning them committing a burglary because I know why he's doing it in the first place. He'll walk off into a bank and say, stick 'em up, motherfucker. This is a holdup. When a brother gets mad after living in this confinement in these ghettos 20 or 30 years and walks up and says, stick 'em up, motherfucker, up against the wall, this is a holdup. He isn't asking anybody in there what the color on their skin is because there's some black tellers in there too. All he wants is that money to relieve himself of that oppression he's been subjected to for so many years. I know the feeling. talk about dualism, talk about the mind and the body. I think this is the key thing. And sometimes when the teacher says you're talking about the mind and the body, you're really talking about the pussy, the dick, the mind, the body, the pussy, the dick, the mind. We're talking about the babies that come out of the pussies of women. We're talking about the dudes that put their dicks in the pussies of women. We're talking about the minds being related to the correct social order. Stop all the existing bullshit. We're talking about human being beginning and surviving. That's what we're talking about. Very dialect.
Mhm.
Very dialect.
Absolutely fucking right. Because this is something we've been talking about for a long time too, that the root of any kind of criminal activity comes back to poverty. You wouldn't be out there robbing banks or stealing anything from any fucking buddy if your material conditions were actually being fucking met. You know, the system wants to pretend like having this carceral fucking bullshit and, you know, putting people in prison like that is the fucking solution to the problem. No, the solution to the problem is people having housing, people having bread, people having clothes to wear, shoes on their feet, fucking education, access to health care. Come the fuck on. That is the fucking solution.
Suicide prevention.
Yes.
Lessens chances of depression.
Mm-hmm.
How about you just let somebody have a place to exist? Don't give them a house. Don't, just let them have a place where they can fend for themselves. Like, that's what I'm struggling with right now, and it's driving me crazy. Like, I've had to move camp like 13 times now in the last 3 months, and these motherfuckers just won't leave me alone.
Right? And at this point, they're trying to fucking criminalize homelessness. In many places, they've already done so. Of like, oh, you're unlawfully camping. Motherfucker, what are people supposed to do when the economy is fucking crumbling? When you can even have a job or multiple jobs and still not fucking be able to afford a place to live? Because the minimum wage has not kept up with the cost of living, with inflation, with fucking production. Even if it did, the fucking minimum wage would be about $64, $65 an hour. Not this fucking bullshit we have of federal fucking minimum wage of $7.25 an hour that wasn't enough to survive on, over 20 fucking years ago when I was in high school and one of my jobs was paying me that much. It wasn't enough to fucking survive on then.
Right.
For fuck's sake, my other job that paid me $12.50 an hour plus commission back in 99, 2000 still wasn't enough to cover the fucking cost of living then. I had to have a roommate.
Still wasn't enough. Like, if you're complaining about it so much, house me then. Put me in an apartment. Right. Give me food. Give me clothes that actually fit. Not only clothes, but clothes that actually fit. Okay, because y'all don't like to do that. Give me clothes. Right. Give me healthcare. Give me that. Instead of fucking complaining about why I'm out here.
Or just get the fuck out of our way so that we can help each other do this shit. You know what I mean? They just prevent us.
Hell out. Get out.
Yeah, like they tried to criminalize even helping each other. For fuck's sake, look at I can't remember his name, but the case of that elderly man down in Florida who's been arrested time and time again because he is going out and preparing food and feeding the poor, feeding the homeless, and they keep coming at him like, motherfucker, you don't have a cottage license. And he's like, I'm not selling food, I'm giving it, feeding people who need it. And they're like, back to jail you go.
License, a license, a license, a piece of fucking plastic. Like, come on.
Fucking cottage license. Yep. Paperwork to prove that you have paid the state for the ability to prepare food in your own fucking kitchen to feed people who are hungry.
And y'all think that's normal? That's okay?
And he's trying to feed the people that you won't let them set up a campfire somewhere so they can cook for themselves. So they have no choice but just to carry everything they own on their back, which you end up with nothing. And that's how you just end up sitting there on the bench. What else are you going to fucking do?
Like, what
They
else
won't
can
let you
we
do it.
do? Like, what the hell do you expect for us to do?
They expect us to die.
And the
They look
anti-homeless
at us in, they look at us in terms of our adjacency to capital. If we are not exploitable in every way, shape, and form, then our life has no value anymore.
right. And the
They want us
anti
to become monsters so they can use us as the boogeymen. That's why they need more police and the police state and whatever, because there's these people out there that they created intentionally so they could justify their system of oppression.
Yep.
I mean, look at Portland.
Yep. And even like hailing back to earlier in that section where he was, or it might have been the previous section where he was calling out that they were like, oh, but it's just these two cops. And it's like, you know what, motherfuckers, I am so tired of hearing the one bad apple, the two bad apples bullshit. Let's get the whole phrase out of one bad apple ruins the whole bunch. And it's never been one bad apple. It's never been two bad apples. It's been like 99% bad apples and the 1% of them who are actually trying to change anything from within then also get fucking targeted by the fucking cops. You know, like I know somebody who used to be a cop and turned his motherfucking badge back over and said, fuck that, and went and got a medical marijuana caregiver card instead because he actually wanted to do something that benefited the community and wasn't being allowed to as a pig. Every fucking time he tried to call out the fucking atrocities that his coworkers were doing, he got targeted. He got threatened. So no, it's not one or two bad apples. It is the system is fucking rotten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's all fucked.
It is.
In the words of George Carlin, it's all bullshit and it's all bad for you, including this shit of motherfuckers pretending like cops are good guys or pretending like cops are authorities. Motherfucker, you ain't no authority. You ain't my motherfucking author. How can you be my authority? You are my fucking employee.
Right.
Don't even want you as an employee. Fuck you, give me my tax dollars back.
That part.
Like, I need them to survive, to cover my motherfucking cost of living. I don't need to be paying taxes so that it fucking puts boots on everybody's necks.
Like,
Ain't no benefit to the community.
It's not.
And it's fucked. And, you know, here, not only do we have the massive expense of a bunch of fucking pigs we don't need, now these motherfuckers are like, can we get some volunteer pigs too? And motherfuckers in Texas, motherfuckers around here even. One of my fucking neighbors a couple doors down thought it was bragging rights to tell me he was a volunteer fucking sheriff. And I'm like, all right, pig, we don't need to talk no more.
Right.
No,
I
that's
stick to
not bragging.
principles. I stick to principles, okay?
He loves licking boots so much he does it for free. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a shame.
Pretty much.
That's a shame.
One of the married women I was seeing a while back, her husband actually left the U.S. and flew to Ukraine to volunteer to fight for
Girl.
Ukraine. Yeah.
That's a bigger shame.
Mhm.
That's
Like, it speaks volumes to their ideology, you know, that we've been trying to tell people for a long time that the pigs are white supremacist. And it's like, look at these motherfuckers then going and volunteering to go fight on the side of who? Ukrainian Nazis.
yeah, that's a shame.
Ukrainian fucking Nazis.
Yeah.
It's disturbing and disgusting on every fucking level.
That's why I got to tune back into here every once in a while because y'all give me hope, you know?
Take a deep breath, Sister Zen.
Woosah.
This is your yoga instructor telling you in through the nose, out through the mouth, 4 beats.
Right. Reminder to just look down at my hand. Oh, I got it upside down. There we go. Home.
That's
Home. Fuck this shit. Fuck
Mm.
this shit.
That reminds me, I will have to turn you guys on to some MC Yogi. It's actually Indian from India who actually does a kind of a hip hoppy slash um look at both their deities as well as like one of my favorite songs is Ganesh is Fresh and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's about one of their main gods. It's pretty dope.
Hell yeah. Send that shit my way.
Yes, I will. Hang on. Let me find the song that I was trying to think of real quick before I actually. MC Yogi. Uh, Ganesh is Fresh, Rock on Hanuman, Om Namah Shivaya, Son of Shiva, Be the Change
Oh,
is one of my
nice.
favorite songs. And it talks about Gandhi quite a bit, but the overall message is good. The fact that they chose Gandhi, not as good, but I mean, he's one of their cultural heroes, so of course.
There's issues there, especially concerning the caste system.
Yeah. Okay, so you are here now, and then I can send this to you message, and you can just do whatever you're gonna do with it.
Will you send it to me on Facebook actually? Because once we close this out, I won't even have access to the link.
Sure.
Please and thank you.
You're absolutely welcome.
See, I'm gonna look back at the text for a second because there was some other thoughts that I was wanting to touch on in this discussion that have gone out into the
My
fucking
bad.
ether. And I'm gonna scroll through here, see if I can find what it was that had triggered thoughts while we were reading here.
I'm also
Yeah.
dropping you a link to the song that I used to protest at Wendy's when I worked there. I got permission from the artist and I literally played it in the speaker box in the drive-through for 30 minutes straight before the cops had me move. It was glorious.
I just did my interview at Wendy's on Monday, so if you want, I can carry on your legacy.
Well, I actually called I called Fight for 15 and wound up throwing a strike because the management wasn't taking COVID seriously. Like the fact that a 16-year-old got sick from people at work. Okay, now you're endangering children because you aren't taking this seriously. I also got them for not calling a plumber. The bathrooms broke on like a Thursday. It wasn't until Sunday afternoon that a plumber came. And the whole time we're sitting there breathing sewer fumes and serving food.
Yeah, I've had to jump
Yeah.
back into the fast food game because of my situation recently, and I forgot how awful it is. Just all around. Like, I guess I was younger when I first went through it all, but now as an adult going back through it, I'm like, God, I don't know how I used to do this because this is just driving me crazy. The people, the atmosphere, everything.
Oh, yeah, and the fact that, you can't even begin to show any sort of irritation, otherwise you get written up.
Yeah, I had to actually go spend my last few dollars today buying a black COVID mask to put on just so that I could hide. You know what I mean? Hide my facial expressions at work.
Honestly, the mask thing, seriously, overall, it covered most of my face, and I'm so grateful that it did. But apparently, I have resting bitch eyes.
Oh, I know. Me too. Yeah, I'm fucked either way. Like I have to immediately. I know this person's not gonna like me. I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to because I love the people. I'm a man of the people, but I wouldn't consider myself a people person. And I know
No,
that
no, no,
that's
no, 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 no. You are a man of the people and you are a people person. You are not a fast food people person because the people who come to eat at fast food are douchebags. Every single one of them, myself included.
Everyone is overworked.
Yep, and definitely not getting paid enough to put up with the bullshit in those working environments, and
Oh, hell.
speaking of the fight for 15, like the fight for 15 wasn't calling for enough when it fucking started.
No,
It certainly
It
ain't
was
calling
another
for enough
concession.
now.
no,
And it's like,
but I mean, they were
Another
able
concession.
to help mobilize a bunch of people and get the protest off the ground. That I am grateful for.
yeah, I'm just saying that, like, even when it first started, it should have been like a call for 25, a call for 30, and at this point, a call for 50.
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
saying,
no, no.
'cause shit
15
ain't
is
keeping
so
up with
far.
costs of
That's like
living.
1993. Let's go. Try again.
Right. Because again, let me just remind you, in 1999 and 2000, when I was making 12.50 an hour plus commission at one job and seven something, seven and a quarter, 750, whatever at another job, still wasn't enough money to fucking survive that. That was over 20 years ago. It sure is fucking enough money to survive now, you know? Like between the two, I was averaging, more per week than somebody would with one job at $15 an hour. Still wasn't fucking enough. Hell, just the one job that was 12.50 an hour plus commissions. By the time the commissions were factored in, I was actually making around $20 to $22 an hour. Still needed a roommate. And we had an apartment that was $600 a month with bills included, even the internet. Still wasn't enough to survive on that.
That is a crazy rental plus internet. Like, what the hell?
Well, it was just one big building that was split into four decent sized, like 2-bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
So they had, one massive Wi-Fi setup just for everybody in the whole building to use.
A mesh network.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean wasn't bad. We could afford it. We just really didn't have anything to work with after, paying rent, paying for our cell phones. I mean, you got to keep in mind at the time it was over $100 a month for a fucking cell phone, and you literally had to pay by the minute you were using. Besides just paying the regular bill for having the motherfucker on, we were still on minutes.
I remember those days. Free calls after 9.
Yeah, that hadn't even kicked in yet, honey.
Oh, shit.
That wasn't a thing yet for a few more years. So, everything was fucking expensive, having to cover car insurance, gas to even get the fuck around town, any of that shit. Like, it just simply was not enough money coming in to actually live comfortably, to have, a dignified life. We were surviving, we were not thriving.
Hey, just a heads up, if you know anybody struggling and they need a cell phone or whatever for like a week, Mint Mobile gives you a free week of cell phone service, and I haven't had much issue with it, honestly. Like I switched from AT&T over to it, and it's only $15 a month too, so a little bit slower, I think, but $15 a month compared to like nearly 100. So I've really been focusing on minimizing my expenses, and that's been a big help.
I was going to say the reason why things like Mint Mobile actually work and Cricket is because there's two major like phone networks, AT&T and Sprint T-Mobile. And they literally have not really updated anything in a long time. My grandpa actually works for Pacific Bell Telesis. You know that today as AT&T. He actually helped set in lines a bunch when he was young. So all of the phone mobile phone services like Cricket and Mint, like they just piggyback off the same freaking networks, and that's why they're able to offer it for so much less.
Right. I didn't even know that was a thing, that $15 a month is pretty fucking cool. I thought mine was cheap because I've got unlimited everything, including unlimited hotspot to be able to hook this laptop
Ooh.
up to for 45 a month, I forget. And that alone was a fucking steal. And at least that's it's on Visible, which is a pay by the month thing through Verizon. And I thought I had it getting it that fucking cheap. That's fucking dope that you managed to find a spot that does it for 15 a month.
Wi-Fi hotspot. It sounds really nice though. I've heard Straight Talk is like $30 or $40 a month or something for unlimited, but then you also get a Walmart membership, and that could be really useful. I mean, especially for me, like just having stuff delivered to me, so I don't have to go out and get it. Seeing as how my vehicle's broke down right now.
Right.
But I would keep that Mint Mobile regardless. I might just use that SIM card and like plug it into a laptop and use that as like my TV or whatever for $15 a month.
Right. And it's like, things like this should actually be socialized. The fact of the matter is that having a phone and access to the internet at this point is absolutely fucking necessary to be functional in society, even to be able to do job applications and shit like that. It should be socialized. And I see there's a couple people with their hands up. Gabby had popped hers up first, and then Sean, you'll have the floor. Go ahead, Gabby.
Hey everyone, sorry that I couldn't come back in time. Unfortunately, I just got back. I just came back from school.
So you're on
my
time.
Yep.
We're still recording.
Right on. My cut's better, so that's good. But no, yeah, my family used to have Verizon, and Verizon can be expensive as fuck. Especially in Florida. Oh no, yeah, it's expensive as hell. It's really expensive. And we switched from Verizon to AT&T, and we've been doing pretty good with AT&T. It's way better in my personal opinion. But
Yeah.
when it comes to modern days, because if I remember correctly, a lot of the shit that is commodified and that is privatized by big corporations now used to be made by public projects to be used for everyone. If I remember correctly, for instance, wasn't Wi-Fi originally designed to be used?
Okay, so that brings me to my point. You are absolutely correct. The public, John Q. Public, paid for the initial setup, all of the infrastructure, and almost all of the servers that began the internet as we know it in the 90s.
Yep.
And there was a bill in the 2000s that actually was like, should we make this a public whatever? And I think that failed.
It shouldn't have, but it probably
shouldn't
failed because of the corporations putting money out to kill it.
Lobbying,
Yes.
gotta love it. Gotta fucking love lobbying.
I was also gonna say one more thing. The one thing that makes Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all the major networks so expensive is those Super Bowl ads and all of the commercials that feature celebrities. That's what you're actually paying for.
Oh no, yeah.
Right. And that's just as fucking useless as our healthcare costing so fucking much because we're paying for fucking TV ads for dick pills.
Speaking of which, I saw some movement on single pairs, a group of doctors, not a small one either, like a major political arm of doctors is actually opting for single payer for the first time in ever.
Fuck yeah. That's what's up. That's what's needed.
So keep your eyes peeled, if you hear about it, like spread the story, because the more eyes that are on it, the better.
Oh no, yeah. But to go off of what Sean and you were saying, Sisters, and these things, not only are they essential for our modern day society, but with things like the internet and Wi-Fi, they used to be for the public. They were made as public projects before they were privatized and commodified by the bourgeois and big corporations. And another thing as well, Sean, is the reason why things like AT&T, Verizon, and that other provider that you mentioned, I forgot their name. But the reason why companies like AT&T and Verizon are the top ones within the industry of Wi-Fi providers, you could say, is that they are the ones that have mostly monopolized said industry. They're the ones that have the most ground to control how much they can raise their bullshit fucking prices, because they have control almost basically everything. They are the ones that have almost all the resources of said industry, so they can maximize profit in whatever way they see fit, because where else are you gonna get it from? Mostly from them. Mostly.
That's why there's an entire section of corporate industry. It doesn't even matter what, sub industry it applies to. There's a massive section of corporatocracy dedicated solely to mergers and acquisitions for these big companies to swallow up the small ones that are their competition. Honestly, that's why I switched to the company I'm with now, Invisible. I used to be on Boost for many fucking years, and as soon as T-Mobile bought out Sprint and thereby bought out Boost, my fucking service went to shit. Not just in like the reception, but what I was paying for. They wanted to start charging me more money while cutting what I was having access to. Like Boost used to have unlimited hotspot included. They cut that shit down to 10 megabytes a month. And it's like,
what the fuck?
Get the fuck out of here, things like that. And it's all because it got swallowed up by another fucking massive corporation. It shouldn't even fucking be allowed. But this is the type of shit that we're dealing with under capitalism that is getting steadily deregulated because of lobbying.
Exactly. And I hate it when people bring up this fucking lie that capitalism thrives from competition. No, it does not. No, it does not. Capitalists hate competition. They absolutely despise competition. They want to have all the resources, all of the industries to themselves. Imperialism is literally just monopolization going from the national level to the international level. That's basically all it is. It's really going beyond the borders of the capitalist state that it derives from. Like, capitalists do not like competition. I mean, look at any industry, literally any industry right now, and look back 50, 60 years ago, and there used to be way more companies than there are now. Prime example of this, the gaming industry. Right now, you have Microsoft with their Xbox, Sony with their PlayStation, and Nintendo with their Switch. But back then, you used to have way more gaming companies competing against each other. You had Atari,
Dreamcast.
Atari, Sega. You had a bunch of these other companies, but now it's just these three contenders. Not even Google could get into the gaming industry because of the influence that Sony already has in it. Y'all remember how Google tried making their own console or some shit like that, and it completely failed? I remember that shit. But yeah, literally look at any company, look at any industry 50 years ago, and I guarantee you there will be barely any companies within that same industry today, because that's the thing. They just want to merge all these other companies. It's the illusion of choice. It's the illusion that we have a choice in where we can get our things. Because the majority of products that we buy today are owned by 5 mega corporations. 5, 6, however the number is.
Right. They're massive conglomerates that have a hand in every fucking bucket. It doesn't matter what it is that you're buying, it's owned by one of those massive fucking like mother companies. And it's
Coca-Cola.
disturbing. And they tried to pretend like, oh, it produces innovation. I would love to fucking know what innovation there is in 50 million fucking places having the same goddamn chicken sandwich. I would love to know what fucking innovation there is in every major car manufacturer basically kicking out carbon copies of each other's fucking vehicles. That is not innovation. That is exploitation. Sean, I see you got your hand up. Go ahead, comrade.
So, considering that most of all these companies have shell companies and sub companies and bought out and mergers and all of the darn damn things,
All right.
what happened to the monopoly laws? Because at some point, these parent companies control everything. It's not, to me, it's still the same fucking companies. So can we break up some monopolies?
Well, they never would have been allowed to monopolize like that had those laws not been rolled back. That's that
True.
deregulation. That's the
True.
influence of the right-wing extreme, the libertarianism, all of that of like, we need a free market. And what they mean is free to fuck everything up, free to exploit as hard as possible, free to monopolize every fucking thing, free to exploit your labor to the most extreme fucking extent they can manage to exploit it to. That's what they call freedom, which isn't freedom at all for any of us who are actually working class. It's fucked.
It is fucked. Like, I don't know what the quote was exactly, but it went something along the lines of, don't underestimate how far capitalists are willing to commodify everything. Anything and everything. Like they have commodified water.
I was just thinking that.
No. Not just water.
Fuck
Not just
Nestle.
water. Not just water. Capitalists have commodified the wind. Like, think about that shit. Like, they even commodified the wind. Like that's just wild to me. Like, imagine trying to explain that to something. Imagine trying to explain someone that you can buy wind. Like, it's just wild to me. Don't underestimate how far they will go to privatize and commodify anything just to exploit and siphon our resources and make us more needed on them. Don't underestimate them.
Right. And we just lost Stone, but he had put a note in the chat saying planned obsolescence ends the innovation discussion. And god damn it, he's right. He's fucking right. Planned obsolescence. Things are built and designed to break down as quickly as possible, to drive consumerism, to get you to keep repurchasing shit because it's made to break down instead of made to last like it used to be. It's made to fucking not be something you can repair yourself anymore. Like even the first cars came with a toolkit and a fucking book outlining how to fix every fucking thing on it. You can't do that today. Now they go so far as to put shit in the fucking way intentionally to make it where you can't get to stuff to even be a backyard mechanic. You've got to take yourself to a fucking dealership to get anything fucking addressed. And it's all part of that planned obsolescence.
Yup. Prime example of this, Sister Zen. I don't know if you were alive long enough to remember these, but do you remember? Do you remember those really fancy metallic sci-fi looking fridges back in the day?
Yeah.
Like those fridges will survive years. Some people still use them. There are people who have grandparents and great grandparents who still use those fridges, and they work perfectly fine to this very day. The only time that it seems, emphasis, seems like capitalism, quote unquote, motivates on shit, is only A, degrading it and making it more profitable by taking out more resources and making cheaper and cheaper resources to maximize profit, and B, 99%, not 91%, 100% of the shit that capitalism has commodified at some point in time came from the labor of someone trying to better society, and they fucking commodified that shit. And they owned that shit and they took it away from them.
Yep.
Like that's like it's like a prime example of this is what they did to Tesla's research and how they just completely fucking commodified his shit. Like, don't even get me started on that.
Elon never should have been allowed to monopolize that and buy out all of the patents on Tesla's work, because look at what bastardization he's fucking done with it. And now people are out here buying Teslas that, you know, their self-driving capacity will take over even when you haven't told it to, and wrecking the cars, or they're fucking exploding because they're using unsafe battery supplies. Because let's be honest, lithium's not a fucking stable element. God damn. It's ridiculous. It's all so fucked, and this is the result of capitalism on fucking crack. But with that said, I did just look at the clock, and we were at about 2 hours and 15 minutes for the recording. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording off right now, because we have diverted away from like the subject material from the reading tonight. We can continue the discussion in here. I'll keep the room open so we can keep talking, because this is a good conversation to have, but I don't want to overwhelm our YouTube audience with the shit being too long either.
Of course.
On that note, let's say goodnight to our YouTube audience. All power, thank you for joining us. And we will
All
see you
power
back
to the people.
next week. And we also have the Second Rainbow Coalition reading group. If you want to check out the YouTube channel for Second Rainbow Coalition, you can see the stuff we're reading in there right now of Comrade Johnny Torres's book, Voices of the Revolution. All power.
All power to the people. All revolutionary love and power.